we know about Janine?
Should be here.
Okay.
It's not 7:45 yet.
No, it's not.
Continuation.
No, it's late.
7:30.
I'm just gonna give it 1 sec. Wait for it. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here for this continuation of the December 17, 2012 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Could we please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. Trustee Davis Ford.
Here.
Trustee Goldberg.
Here.
Trustee Gould.
Here.
Trustee Levinson.
Here.
Trustee Rosner.
Here.
President Torpey.
Here.
Again, this meeting is reconvened from the recessed December 17, 2012 regular meeting. Adequate notice of this meeting had been provided to the press in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. In addition, notice of this meeting has been posted in Village Hall, on our village website, and is filed with the Office of the Village Clerk. Official action may be taken at tonight's meeting.
Thank you. And just for everybody watching, we have a bit of a funky meeting format tonight. We have a continuation meeting that's a holdover from 2012 to basically just take care of some housekeeping financial issues. So we're going to spend a few minutes on that, and then we're going to go into a special meeting. We have some great guests today that we're all excited about. And then after that special meeting, we'll convene into our conference agenda later on this evening for our work/discussion session. So this continuation meeting has a couple resolutions for separate action that are these financial housekeeping items from last year. Ms. Klein, would you like to read the first one by title?
Thank you. This is Resolution 2012-295. This is a resolution authorizing transfers between certain budget appropriations.
Thank you. And actually, before we actually open up discussion for that, we do have public comment periods before and after any action. So if there is anybody who wishes to speak at this point, you can come forward. Okay. So I'd like to close public comments and officially move on to this to 2012-295. Just an FYI, this does require a 2/3 affirmative vote from the board for adoption. I'd like at this time to open it up for any board discussion or a motion. If there are no questions or comments, can I have a motion, please?
I move.
Moved by Trustee Levison.
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Rosner. Can we take the roll, please?
Thank you. Trustee Davis Ford.
Yes.
Trustee Goldberg.
Yes.
Trustee Gould.
Yes.
Trustee Levinson.
Yes.
And Trustee Rosner.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2012-295 has been approved. We have a second resolution for action tonight. It's 2012-296. This is a resolution authorizing the cancellation of certain of the unexpended appropriation balances.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion.
Move. Second.
Moved by Trustee Levison, seconded by Trustee Rosner. Can we have the roll, please?
Thank you. Trustee Goldberg.
Yes.
Trustee Gould.
Yes.
Trustee Levinson.
Yes.
Trustee Rosner.
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2012-296 is approved. We have a third resolution tonight, 2012-297. This is a resolution authorizing special emergency appropriation for extraordinary expenses incurred due to Hurricane Sandy.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, Barry, can you explain what this is and how this gets paid for in 2013?
Yeah, this are obviously in connection with Hurricane Sandy. We incurred some extraordinary expenses, predominantly with debris removal, trees and things. We anticipate, so the way the law allows it, we make an emergency appropriation last year to pay the bills, but because it's an emergency appropriation, that has to be raised in this year's budget, and we anticipate it being paid, if you will, from anticipated revenues to receive from FEMA through the reimbursement. So we're filling out, and we're in the process of paperwork. As you know, this was declared a national disaster and is eligible for FEMA funding.
So of this $125,000, how much do you think will actually be reimbursed?
Oh, I think we're actually getting more than that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't put everything in the emergency. We were able to absorb some in the regular budget.
Here, are any other questions or comments? Have a motion, please.
I move. Second.
Moved by Trustee Rosner, seconded by Trustee Levison. We have the roll, please.
Thank you. Trustee Gould,
Yes.
Trustee Levinson.
Yes.
Trustee Rosner,
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford,
Yes.
and Trustee Goldberg.
Yes.
So 2012-297 has been approved as well. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting again for any comments from any members of the public. Seeing as there are no members of the public who wish to speak at this time, and there will be plenty more opportunities, I'd like to close public comments and ask for a motion to adjourn this continuation meeting.
I move. Second.
Moved by Trustee Rosner, seconded by Trustee Levison. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, adjourning. Now at this time, I would like to call to order the special meeting of the South Orange Board of Trustees.
Get the ice in.
What's that?
Did you get the ice in?
Sorry?
Stan was supposed to tell you when you could do it.
Oh, are you good? Okay, we're good. Thanks. Are you okay? Ms. Klein?
Thank you. Trustee Davis Ford. I'm taking a roll call, I'm sorry. To go into the special meeting.
Still here?
I'm still here.
Thank you. I just need it on the record. Trustee Goldberg.
Here.
Trustee Gould.
I'm here.
Trustee Levinson.
Here.
Trustee Rosner.
Here.
And President Torpey.
Here.
Thank you. Adequate notice of this meeting had been provided to the press in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. In addition, notice of this meeting has been posted in Village Hall, on our website, and is on file in the office of the village clerk. Official action may be taken at tonight's special meeting.
Thank you. Now, normally, we have a new meeting format for this year, and at this time, normally what we would do is pass a resolution to go into closed session and discuss our closed session items prior to the rest of the meeting happening, whereas in the past, the closed session items have been at the very end of the meeting. But instead of doing that right away, because we have such great guests here today, and we don't want to make anybody wait, so I'd like to move up our presentation this evening of our Villagers of the Month.
Robin, since the meeting wasn't noticed until 8 o'clock, can we still do that? Should we still do that?
It says 7.
The meeting was noticed on the calendar at 7:45.
Yeah.
And this isn't official action either way, but yeah, it was on the calendar for 7:45.
Do the Pledge of Allegiance. When do the Pledge?
I was going to do that after we come back from executive session. So, do we have our community relations committee here? All right.
Well, can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Tonight, the January Villagers of the Month have made a request, Mr. Village President, and the trustees. They've requested that all cell phones be turned off, but more particularly, anyone who has Wi-Fi hub access to please disconnect it. Anyone who has Wi-Fi hub connection, disconnect it. If you don't know what it is, you probably don't have it. All right, now let's tell the story of the January 2013 Villager of the Month. In an autumn, not long ago, actually, October 2011. No, it was longer ago than that. It was October 2010. In a place not very, very far away. Well, actually, it was rather close. It was here in our community. A physics teacher who had real-world experience as a high-tech financial analyst, together with a brave band of about 10 students, decided to build a robot. A bot, as they called it. They were excited about the idea. The project would pull on their skills, their programming skills, their knowledge on how to build things, figure things out. They even had to find a different use for remote controls other than the television. We won't go into Xboxes and so forth. They put in a lot of work. They had fun, but it was still hard fun. At last, the bot was built. It was ready to compete in robotic competitions. But when the bot would compete, it wasn't winning. That's when the team really pulled together to show what a team could be. It had been losing a few tournaments, and the team knew they had to analyze and really re-engineer bot if they wanted to win. They were learning, but they were teaching our community lessons too. They reverse engineered what they had done by defining the problem as really understanding the task the bot had to solve and how it had to be built to perform it. Then they began rebuilding bot. The robotics team had learned the real 3 R's of education: resilience, resourcefulness, and resistance to accepting failure. By April of 2011, BOT was invited to compete in the first Tech Robotics Challenge World Championship. Thousands of teams are invited. This event is also attended by a host of high-tech companies that our robotics teams have a chance to interview or interface with. The competition was narrowed down to 128 robotics teams. Columbia High School was one. And Columbia High School captured second place at this first Tech World Championship, even though it had been in existence for less than a year. And they have grown from there. I would like to have the team stand. The varsity team, please stand so we can acknowledge. I would also like to acknowledge that there is a junior varsity team as well. Please, would they stand? But foremost, the most important thing is that they are teams. They're composed of not just one sex or one species, nor one culture, nor one race. Nor do the members have to take or be in certain classes or levels. These team members know how each of the unique strengths of the other helps the team achieve what they've accomplished. They have learned and experienced key life skills and lessons. But more important, they've shared this with the community. They haven't kept it just to themselves. Through their accomplishments and examples, they have spun approximately 14 other robotic teams in the district, such as the junior varsity team, who, by the way, Saturday captured third place in their first competition. What?
They made it to the state competition.
All right, and they made it to the state competition. But in addition to that, they're bringing these skills and experiences and excitement into the school district. There are other teams that have been spun. South Orange Middle School has a strong robotics team coming up. South Mountain has a team. Clinton has 5 teams. And the nation is watching. They're watching what this team has brought to this community. But finally, this team is not one that doesn't share. For example, last month, December 2nd, as the reigning champions, they hosted a tournament for other robotic teams throughout New Jersey. And when you see the robotics teams at a tournament, you'll know why they win. Even as they host other teams, their ability to be gracious, strong, and supportive, and coordinate the other teams show through. Because of those skills and the honor they bring, this is why they have been nominated as a Villager of the Month. At this point, I'd like to introduce and present to the team member who is accepting the Villager of the Month award, Columbia High School, and our communities, Bilbo. It wasn't you, Bilbo, it was the human. Now, Mr. Tomalilo, who is referred to fondly by the students as Mr. T and on campus, would like to share with you a few of their plans and how they impact on what's happening in our community. Mr. T?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here tonight. There's one little thing about the Robotics Club I want to point out. A couple South Orange residents were tremendously influential in getting it started. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, please stand. They were the instigators of all this. And we got an initial grant from Mr. Richardson's company, Qualcomm Corporation, which helped get this club moving. They have been tremendously supportive, as are the other parents, in moving this forward. As was mentioned, the high school team took second place in the world. They're also New Jersey state champions, last year Pennsylvania state champions. And we have the two teams going into the state tournament at NJIT on February 9th, which you're all invited to come to. No admission. So please show up. These teams have done a tremendous amount in both towns, going to the toy stores, to the libraries, mentoring teams in the middle school and elementary schools. And they've really recruited. And the robotics organization in the United States called US First, the New Jersey division, has said that the Columbia team has helped make South Orange Maplewood School District the fastest growing robotics district in the state of New Jersey in terms of robotics. So we have a huge group coming up into the high school for the foreseeable future. And this team helped design a course at Columbia High School in robotics, which we hope will be started in the fall. Will be offered through the tech department. Members of the team have designed the projects, they designed what equipment to be used, the software, and so on, and they've worked with the teachers for that, and it's going to the Board of Ed. It's already been delivered over there, so we expect action by February or March, and it'll be in the curriculum next fall. So it's a tremendous amount of work that they've done, and they're a terrific bunch of kids. Both teams have worked incredibly hard, and you should know that these kids are now moving into top colleges and universities around the country. The kids who graduated last year in these groups are really going to do well. And I don't know if any of you watched 60 Minutes, the news show at night, on Sunday nights. The first segment on the last night's show was on robotics and how it's transforming the economy, not only in this country, but in other countries. And it's really remarkable what will happen there. And these kids are in the forefront of that. If they pursue this in college and beyond, they're going to be in one of the fastest growing segments of the economy. So we wish them well for that. And I would like to thank the board once again for this award, and it's greatly appreciated. We'll get this framed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, one thing, we have another robot. It's a golfing robot. I understand some of you go out and golf on occasion. It's called Cougar Woods. And why don't you bring Cougar over here? If someone would like to challenge Cougar Woods to a putting contest, we'd be more than happy to beat you. And Cougar Woods, it was used at the Cougar Boosters golf tournament in May, and we beat the golfers in a putting contest. And we'd like to make Cougar Woods available for the South Orange golf tournament that you have in the fall. So if you need for additional fundraising, Cougar Woods would be enrolled and would be on the putting green, wherever it is, and we would challenge your participants to a golf match. So we have a golf putter. So if anyone would like to come up here and try their medal, Cougar Woods is in it.
I'm trying.
President,
I'll
come on up.
In front of a bunch of kids, I'm going to lose no robot. I don't think so.
Very recently.
Actually, we're waiting for you to come up with a robot to replace the president. Just kidding. I'm sure.
Howard's got eyes on us to replace all of us.
Deborah, you represented the board, so don't worry.
At least I was man enough to volunteer.
You just put a lot of pressure on yourself.
Come on, Deborah, show how to do it.
All excuses.
The table's in the way.
Square yourself to the ball, right? That doesn't count. Oh, water trap.
Keep trying.
Deborah, we can't adjourn the meeting until you get the.
Well, at least I got it up there. Trustee Davis Court rules.
And you're one in the water, two to come out. One in the sand. You're buying four, Deborah.
Back to school.
So we need to have him for the golf course? Awesome. This is awesome. I'll be sorry, this is my money.
Thank you. The commander of the robot was the captain of the varsity team, Adam Richardson. And as Mr. T and Adam on the side of the team have offered, Cougar Woods is available for the South Orange golfing tournament. So,
Nicely done.
We'll make sure, we'll make sure that he's a part of our tournament.
he's
On my team.
not your foursome, huh?
Right.
Mr. Village President, I'm informing the Villagers of the Month that they do not need to stay for the next meeting, so they will be leaving shortly.
Actually, coming here, you're required to stay in for all 3 meetings.
We changed this up, okay? But before you do leave, we'd like to say thank you to the teams, to the parents, to the supporters. One was already writing a check while they sat here in our village hall this evening, just to let you know. And the academic environment that made this team possible. You are an inspiration. You've brought honor to our community, and you've made us proud. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to personally congratulate and thank all you guys on behalf of all of us. I know for me personally, this is pretty exciting because I graduated Columbia High School not too long ago myself in 2005. And although we did not have a robotics team back then, now I kind of wish we did. This is pretty cool. And I just want to congratulate you guys again. I mean, there's a lot, there's so much energy and passion in so many young people about what you want to do and contribute to the world. And this is such a great way to do it, not only for, like the gentleman mentioned before, the advancements, in, I would imagine, especially medical science and things like that, where robotics is really playing a huge role in that, but also showing more people that it doesn't matter how old or young you are, or anything about you, you can be part of something really great. You can be innovators, and I think those are the kind of people that change the world, change the economy. So that's something that I've always known Columbia High School to be about, and it's pretty cool to see that that's still happening and happening in even more interesting and exciting ways. So congratulations again. We can give you guys a minute to, yeah. The robot also does crowd control.
That is so cool.
It's all laser sight. Maybe your game will improve.
Yeah. Hey, I did pretty good. I got right up there.
I think you did pretty good.
Yeah.
I was expecting you to break the window.
The ball didn't get over the rise. I got over the rise. I just missed the stop.
Your muscles and it's laser sight. You're a good team.
I used to think to get out and play. I only went out twice last year, once before. I'll never be a power
Actually, this is a perfect time to go into the closed session.
hitter, but I definitely could do well on a short game.
It's actually a good time for us to do the closed session while people.
Sure.
So, okay.
Are we going into closed session?
Yeah, I think we could just do it now. We don't really need to wait so we can get back out sooner. But we do need to pass a resolution first.
We have to go online.
Dan, are we still going live? Okay. All right. Ms. Klein, could you please read the next resolution by title?
Thank you. This is Resolution 213-001, a resolution authorizing an executive session at tonight's meeting of the Board of Trustees.
We need to list each of the items first. The items for inclusion on tonight's executive session, under attorney-client matters, an update on a personnel investigation, update on ICMA report next steps, purchase, lease, or acquisition of real property exception is the Mary Lawn property, personnel matters, update on the performance evaluation process for the village administrator, update on replacement of the assistant to the administrator, appointments to the Historic Preservation Commission, appointments and reappointments to the South Orange Parking Authority, under contract matters, an update for PBA collective bargaining, an update for OPEIU collective bargaining, and professional service RFPs.
2 comments. East Orange Water. You skipped?
We got an update from that, and that was listed as an update, so unless there's a discussion that we need to have.
That's fine. And municipal prosecutor was on the original list.
Oh, yeah, that should have been on this too. And that was the shared
Contract
services
matter.
proposal for municipal prosecutor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Levison. Seconded by trustee Reisner. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we're going to recess into executive session and come back out here, let's say by 8:30.
So we'll reconvene
Thank you.
at 8:30.
We'll reconvene.
Hello? We're going back home. All right. I lost my pen. We can't continue. There we go.
35.
He's ready.
Hold on. Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. I'd like to reconvene this meeting of the Board of Trustees. Could we please have the roll?
Thank you. Trustee Davis Ford. Present. Trustee Goldberg.
Here.
Trustee Gould.
Still here.
Trustee Levinson. Trustee Rosner.
Yes.
President Torpy.
Here. So we don't need another meeting statement notice?
Nope, we are reconvening.
Okay, if everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Back over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, a couple quick announcements tonight. The South Orange Community Garden registration for 2013 began on the 12th. The garden, which is on 3rd Street, West 3rd Street, has 48 plots available on a first-come, first-served basis. Anybody who does want a plot of land for the community garden can register at the Baird Center for $70 for the entire season. If you want more information about that, you can go to southorange.org/communitygarden. Reminder that Village Hall offices and facilities will be closed Monday, January 21st of observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There is a Board of Trustee budget work session scheduled for Tuesday, January 22nd at 7:30 p.m. here in Village Hall. And just a reminder for online tax and sewer payments, it is the easiest way to pay your bill. And it just takes a couple minutes to do so, and you can do it right on our website, and you'll get a receipt right there. You can make your payments online at southorange.org/taxpayment.asp. So we did our presentation of our villagers of the month, and at this time we can approve our minutes. And we can do them all at once, or do you want to do them separately?
President Torpy, we can do them all at once. I just want to note for the record that the December 31st special meeting, Trustee Goldberg, you were absent for that meeting, so you'll have to abstain.
Sure. Yeah, please, yes. Thank you.
And the other minutes are the December 13th ICMA special meeting, the budget work session after that, and this December 17th regular meeting, as well as the 31st special meeting. Do we have a motion for approval?
I move.
Moved by Trustee Davis Ford, seconded by Trustee Rosner. All in favor? Any opposed?
I have to abstain from the budget, but I'm in favor of the other ones.
You were late at the budget meeting. Okay.
Okay, so we got those two abstentions?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. So those passed. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting up for any comments from any members of the public. Just anybody who wishes to speak? Nope. Okay. Seeing as there are no members of the public who wish to speak, I'd like to close the public comment section and move on to the public hearing and adoption of the 2013 District Management Corporation budget. The introduction of this budget was at our December 17th meeting. The public hearing, just the same way for our budgets or for ordinance, tonight is the public hearing and final adoption of the budget. Sir, Ms. Klein, are you required to read the notice there about the budget where it was available?
Yes. Before you actually go into your public hearing for the budget, I just wanted to read that we have a resolution to read the budget by title. Whereas NJSA 40:56-84 as amended provides that the governing body shall by resolution passed by not less than a majority of full membership, determine that the annual budget of a district management corporation as advertised shall be read at the public hearing in full, or it may be read by title upon declaration that the following conditions have been met. 1, at least 1 week prior to the date of the hearing, a complete copy of the approved budget as advertised shall be posted in a public place where public notices are customarily posted in the principal municipal building of the municipality. And B, is made available to each person requesting the same during said week and during the public hearing. And whereas the village clerk has provided a certification attesting that the full budget was published in the official newspaper at least 10 days prior to the public hearing, was posted on the bulletin board in Village Hall, and copies of the budget were made available at no charge to each person requesting one, and therefore be it resolved by the governing body by the Township of South Orange Village that it hereby declare that the conditions of NJSA Title 40:56-84 as amended and set forth in subsections 1A and 1B have been met, and therefore the South Orange Village Alliance budget shall be read by title only.
Okay, do we have a motion for that resolution?
Second.
I moved by trustee Reisner, seconded by trustee Gould. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the resolution to read the budget by title passed. At this point, we can consider 2013-3.
Thank you. This is the resolution, the budget resolution for the South Orange Village Center Alliance fiscal year 2013 operating budget.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting for any member of the public who wishes to speak about this particular item. Okay. Seeing as there are no members of the public who wish to speak about this, I'd like to close the public hearing and move on to the board discussion. Are there any questions or comments from any trustees? If not, can I have a motion, please?
I move.
Moved by trustee Davis Ford.
Second.
Seconded by trustee Levison. Do we have the roll, please?
Thank you. Trustee, I believe we should start with trustee Gould.
That was the last.
Thank you. Trustee Levinson?
Yes.
Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Goldberg?
Yes.
And trustee Gould?
Yes.
Thank you. So the 2013 District Management Corporation budget has been adopted.
Thank you. We have one ordinance for second reading and public hearing tonight. Please read it by title.
This is ordinance 2012-20. It's an ordinance of the Village of South Orange Township, County of Essex, approving the application and financial agreement for tax exemption for an urban renewal project with respect to a portion of the Central Business Redevelopment Area located on Block 1904, lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Just for clarification for the public, this is the former Bifus site, new South Orange Commons, I believe is the last name we saw, for a pilot for that particular project. At this time, I'd like to open up this ordinance for a public hearing. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak about this ordinance, please come forward. Seeing as there are no members of the public who wish to speak on this ordinance, I'd like to close the public hearing and move on to the board discussion. Are there any comments or questions from any trustee?
Just for the viewing public, we've discussed these things at a prior meeting in a lot of detail.
That is correct. Okay, if there's no more discussion, comments, or questions, could I please have a motion?
I move.
Moved by trustee Davis Ford,
Second.
seconded by trustee Rosner. Could we have the roll, please?
Thank you. Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Goldberg?
No.
Trustee Gould?
Yes.
And trustee Levinson?
Yes.
Ordinance 2012-20 has passed.
Thank you. We have several resolutions for separate action this evening.
Okay. The first resolution is Resolution 213-004. This is a resolution authorizing temporary emergency appropriations for previous year tax appeals. This is in the amount of $750,000, and it's pursuant to NJSA Title 40A 4-20.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, is there anything that you want to comment on this as far as explaining for the members of the public?
No, it's just, it provides an appropriation to charge if we resolve tax appeals before the final budget's adopted. This is not something that's normally provided for in the temporary budget, so you do it by way of a temporary emergency appropriation.
Barry, can you clarify, how does that, what's the relationship between this and the bond ordinance that was done at the end of last year?
The bond ordinance is actually to fund matters that have already settled and refunds that were due. This is to set up a temporary appropriation against which, if matters settle, tax season's upon us here, tax bills are due. If matters settle, we make settlements. This gives an appropriation to charge, depending on the outcome and whether they rise to a level that we would have to do, refunding tax appeal refund bonds. Again, we would do that if it's a more manageable number that we can, absorb within our operating budget. That's yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, are you putting in the current budget monies for refunding?
I would like to, to establish which is not
Which we haven't done in the
previously,
past.
that they have a reserve for tax appeals.
Right.
That's generally good practice, and it's actually a reserve you can carry over, so if you have a better year, you can build a balance.
We don't have to bother.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, do we have a motion for 2013-004?
I move.
Okay, moved by trustee Levison,
Second.
seconded by trustee Rosner. Do we have the roll, please?
Thank you. Trustee Davis Ford.
Yes.
Trustee Goldberg.
Yes.
Trustee Gould.
Yes.
Trustee Levinson.
Yes.
Trustee Rosner.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 213-004 has been approved. We have another resolution. This is 2013-005. This is the temporary budget resolution for the year 2013.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions about this? The title is fairly self-explanatory, unless there's anything you want to add.
No, it's just statutorily you're allowed to authorize to give you sort of.
So this allows us to get moving on cutting checks.
5% of the prior year's appropriation. There's a couple exceptions. Debt service, capital improvement, those you can fund based on whatever your anticipated needs are, but that's basically, these are just 26.25% of the 2012 budget.
So this allows us to keep paying our bills till we pass the budget.
Correct.
Right. Okay, are there any comments or questions from any board members? Okay, could I have a motion, please?
Move.
Moved by trustee Levison,
Second.
seconded by trustee Rosner. Could we have the roll?
Thank you. Trustee Goldberg.
Yes.
Trustee Gould.
Yes.
Trustee Levinson.
Yes.
Trustee Rosner.
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford.
Yes.
Thank you. So resolution 2013-005 has been approved.
Thank you. We have a number of resolutions on our consent agenda this evening.
Yes, let me go through them. We have a resolution to cancel tax overpayments and small balances from calendar year 2011. A resolution adopting the cash management plan of the Township of South Orange Village for the year 2013. Resolution designated deputy custodians of public records. A resolution authorizing the village assessor and special counsel for property tax appeals to defend and/or settle property tax appeal matters pending before the Essex County Board of Taxation and the Tax Court of New Jersey. A resolution authorizing the sale of a village vehicle no longer needed for public use. Resolution amending the South Orange Community Garden registration fee. A resolution in support of gun control. A resolution authorizing the award of a fair and open contract for special counsel for real property tax appeal matters. A resolution granting raffle license number 1229 to the PTA Seth Boyden Demonstration School for an off-premise cash raffle. And we have a resolution granting raffle license number 1230 to the PTA Seth Boyden Demonstration School for an off-premise merchandise raffle.
Thank you. Are there any questions about any of these resolutions?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, for the cash management plan. To pull that out and have a discussion.
Okay.
A question on number 2013-10, authorizing the sale of village vehicle no longer needed for public use. What's the backstory on this? We're selling a truck to a fire department in Maine for $1,000, Like, what is that? How'd that come about? I assume they're gonna pick it up.
Yeah, they're
as
responsible
is.
for its as is. It's an older one that otherwise would have gone to the scrap heap, and I guess there's some sort of fire department network like nationwide, and somehow Chief Markey was made aware that some volunteer department in Maine expressed an interest and said, if you want to come and get it.
They're gonna come and get it. It's as is and all that.
There's no warranty. No,
Okay.
No transmission.
What's
They know
that?
it.
No transmission.
Is that the part really?
One of the.
They buy these for parts.
Yeah, they're buying it for parts.
Are there questions on any other of these resolutions?
No.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion for passing the consent agenda without 2013-007?
I move to pass the consent agenda excluding resolution 2013-007.
Thank you. Is there a second?
My second.
Okay, seconded by trustee Rosner. We have the roll, please.
Thank you. Trustee Gould?
Yes.
Trustee Levinson?
Yes.
Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford?
Yes.
And Trustee Goldberg?
Yes.
Thank you. So the consent agenda has been approved. Resolution 2013-007 has been removed for separate action and discussion.
Thank you. So, yes, now we can consider 2013-007.
I don't consider this cash management plan complete. It still has my notes in it for corrections. And if you look at the last page, it's for the year of 2012, not 2013. This still needs, this is a modification that we've been going on for the last year. Sorry, I lost my voice. If you go through it, you just see a series of notes. The notes should be highlighted, which were questions that were raised. I'm sorry.
And they should not have been left in there.
They should not have been left in there. Plus, as one of the notes that was given to him previously, that the year for which it is being enacted for is last year, not this year.
So what are you proposing?
Table this?
Table it.
Table it, okay.
It's a resolution, we don't actually have to table it, right? We just have to not take action on it.
No, we don't have to make a motion for this.
Yeah, but you're not, there has to, what is the process to
Well,
determine
I
for
would-
keeping this open?
Yeah, thank you. I think for clarity of record, since it was on the agenda as part of the consent, it was removed from the consent agenda, I think it would be appropriate for there to be a motion to table to our next meeting.
I'll move the table to the
Okay,
next meeting.
moved by trustee Rosner,
I second.
seconded by trustee Davis Ford. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Just one further comment. This was not passed last year. It is something that's statutorily that we need to pass, and it should be corrected.
Okay. Now, is this table, just for clarity for myself, this is tabled to next meeting?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, or until it's resolved.
Okay.
That's what we said last year.
Okay, next is my appointments for the Historic Preservation Commission. So I will read the appointments now. Adam Loren, Amy Don, Gar Hill, Peter DeSico, Jeffrey Langsam, Bob Barnett, and then there is one vacancy, which I'll discuss in a second. And we have two alternates, Elise Carter and Caroline Moen. And do we know who the trustee liaison is going to be? Yeah.
I don't know.
We could appoint Janine, she's not here.
But, you know, I don't think we officially appointed anyone.
Okay. And as I mentioned, there is one vacancy still. It's a seven-member board, and we have 6 appointed members. So we thank everybody for applying for that, and we're looking forward to everybody getting to work. We do have one vacancy. I'm informed that the areas of town that we don't have represented are Tuxedo Park and Newstead. So if there's anybody, especially from one of those 2 areas in town, although obviously I think the board is open to anybody, anybody's application, please go to the village website, southorange.org, and find the volunteer applications, and go to the page and select Historic Preservation Commission as a drop-down, and send us your application in, please. At this point, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn this special meeting.
I'll adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Trustee Reisner, seconded by Trustee Levison. All in favor? Okay, we have adjourned our special meeting. And at this time, I would like to call to order the technically fourth meeting of the night, our conference agenda meeting. Could we have the roll, please? Has anybody left?
Yeah, we're all present as before, so I'll
Okay.
let the record reflect that.
At least in body, maybe not in spirit. And you have your notice?
Yeah, adequate notice of this meeting had also been provided to the press in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. In addition, notice of this meeting has been posted in Village Hall, on our website, and has been filed in the office of the village clerk. Official action may not be taken at tonight's meeting.
So just a reminder on this kind of restructuring that we did of our meeting format. Tonight was a little strange because we had a continuation meeting left over from last year for some of those financial housekeeping items, and then moved things around to accommodate our wonderful Columbia High School students that were here tonight, and make sure Deborah had the biggest audience for her golf game. And so what we're normally going to be doing going forward is convening very briefly at 7:30 p.m. to go immediately into executive session. As going to executive session, as if you're watching, you've seen, requires a resolution to do so. We can't just come here and do it unless we pass the resolution the meeting before. So we pass the resolution to go into executive session. That begins at 7:30. The executive session will go until 8 o'clock, at which point at 8 o'clock, if it is a meeting, if it's the first meeting of the month, we'll convene a special meeting to take care of any action items that have to be done. And then we'll, as soon as possible, go into the conference agenda, which we're going back to after some discussion last year, which is the more open meeting format where official action is not taken, but we spend a little bit more time discussing things, and this will hopefully improve some of the complaints that several trustees, I think we've all talked about, as far as making sure we have proper time to discuss things before we're taking action, and improving kind of our workflow a little bit. So the first meeting of the month at 8 o'clock we'll begin our special meeting and then go into the conference agenda, and for the second meeting of the month, we'll at 8 o'clock go into immediately our regular session of the board. But again, 7:30 we will convene out here publicly, but only to go immediately into closed session, and then a half hour later come back starting at 8 o'clock or within a couple minutes of that. So we're hoping that this will improve our efficiency a little bit, moving the closed session up to the beginning of the meeting, hopefully cut down the time that we spend in closed session, and hopefully just allow us to kind of work better. And we're constantly tweaking, so we'll see how this goes and kind of look back on it in a couple months from now. Enough of that. I'll get right into my report, which I'll try and keep brief. I've got a couple different things. One is budget transparency, which is a topic I've talked about, I think, in my reports for the last several months. It's a discussion that I've been having with the co-chairs of our Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. Today we met again. The goal is to see if there is any way that we can kind of build upon South Orange's pretty incredible success of being transparent with our budgets, not only in years past, putting them online for many years, at least 5 or 6 years on our website of budget information in a PDF format, and videos of the administrator CFO giving budget introductions, to last year where we made available a spreadsheet that people could download, look at all the different cells, play with the numbers and things like that. And this year what we're looking at is kind of taking that a step further and giving ourselves online access to some tools that would further make our budget more accessible. Not only accessible for people to kind of learn about the budget, but also accessible to make it easier for people to give their input to us on what their ideas as residents and citizens are. So it's not only coming through, just the budget workshop meetings, which are not always, very highly attended. So by making this more accessible, hopefully we can educate people better about the decisions that we have to make as a governing body, sometimes very difficult decisions about budget items. So that's the goal. And as we discussed a few different tools, I've mentioned them by name in the past. The one that we're looking at right now, the name of the company that creates this tool is called Delphi. And they offer this particular tool they started in Palo Alto in California and are expanding. And what the tool basically does is takes a couple of years of budget data and puts it into a visual format where you can very, very easily basically generate financial reports looking at years past, comparing departments to departments, years to years, and it's in a really beautiful chart, table, pie chart. It's got a whole bunch of different tables and charts that you can select from, make it really easy to compare what's going on. The company in the future is interested in expanding that so you can compare one town to another town and do budget forecasting. And as we had the discussions today, our village administrator joined myself and our representative from the CBAC to talk about this, and what we started to realize was that this tool could actually be worthwhile for us to use internally in the village, as well as, so there will be value to the village and there'll be value as far as transparency goes to the public. The explanation of that is that the tool is so easy to use, the data is in such a great, easy to read visual format that it's actually easier to run financial reports on that and get more information than our financial software that we currently use to look at those kind of reports. So as far as department heads submitting budgets to the administrator, as far as us looking at those submissions and the village administrator looking at those submissions and creating a full budget, this might actually, would likely improve the efficiency of the way that we compile our budget internally. And what it looks like is basically that when you go to run the report, here, if you're thinking, oh, what was our line for this 3 years ago? Now you can pull it up in a few seconds versus going through our financial system would include going to the finance office and having reports run, and it would just take a lot more time. So this should make it a lot easier, make the information more accessible, help empower our staff to make even more informed budget decisions for their budgets, and ultimately allow the public better understanding of the decisions that we're making. The tool costs a couple $1,000s a year, so we are looking at whether that's something that we can fit into our budget, a budgeting tool. Although when we look at it from an efficiency standpoint, the number of staff hours that we could potentially save by using a tool like this would far surpass the cost, not to mention the fact that it is providing an increased level of transparency about our budget to the community. So we discussed that. They sent us a proposal so we can at least understand what they offer us. That's going to be forwarded very soon to the Finance and IT Committee for review, consideration, and if it's something that the committee feels like bringing forward, then we'll consider it here in perhaps at the next board meeting if we can, so we can start to basically load in past years of data, put it online, and really open up our budget even more.
I'm looking at this website. Why wouldn't we just do this ourselves in Excel? I mean, it's simple line and pie charts.
Excel doesn't really do this with the amount of data that's in the system. If you'd like to offer to put together the system in an Excel spreadsheet, I think we'd be all in favor. But this is a couple years of engineering that went into creating the software that allows you to cut things up, compare years to years, like that. So it's, unless you're an Excel expert, people aren't going to be able to do that in Excel.
So I just think it's a good suggestion. I mean, we're not obligating ourselves to anything or
No.
expense. He's getting the information, he'll be forwarded to the appropriate committee, and the appropriate committee is the Finance Committee, chaired by our Honorable Trustee Levinson, and then they'll vet it and give their feedback to the board for discussion and decision.
Yep.
The one question because I saw it this afternoon, is that could we possibly do it on a trial basis and model what we're currently doing?
Wait, say that again? The last part.
Can we model what we're currently doing for this year?
Yes. I think if I understand your question, what they actually allow you to do is put in your proposed budget as well as your approved and introduced final adoption. So, and what they said, in the future they were going to allow you to actually enter all those in and look back and kind of forecast, because it's basically the same way that you would look from year to year, is kind of the same way it's set up to look from budget to budget.
You can do what ifs.
That's correct. So anyway, so I wanted to make sure to report on that. That's a discussion that's been kind of ongoing for the past month or two. Again, today had a conference call with them where they walked us through some of the features and realized there really could be some efficiency gained in our own operations as well as making it more transparent. So that's that, and probably the next time we'll hear about that will be from the from the Finance and IT Committee. A quick New Jersey Transit update. New Jersey Transit announced that as of today, their rail service into New York is back to the pre-Hurricane Sandy levels of service. So that was one of their milestones, I guess. And obviously, we still have a number of concerns because the schedule directly before Sandy was not a schedule we were particularly happy with. If people will recall the meetings that we had with New Jersey Transit here and with our state legislative representatives in the county to talk about trying to change that schedule in our favor for our commuters. We're meeting with New Jersey Transit, state representatives and the mayors of West Orange and Livingston before the end of the month. And in that meeting, hopefully we'll get a sense of the data that they promised to collect from the first 2 weeks of January, looking at ridership levels and how that's been affected. And so that was where we left off last with them about what they were going to do was this first couple weeks of data collection in January. So when they're done with that, we'll meet with them, discuss that, and whatever findings come out of that. So after that meeting, we'll have a much more thorough update about what New Jersey Transit gathered from that information, what they're planning to do, if anything about that, and what we can do to continue to try and lobby for changes that are in our commuters' interests. A couple other quick things, the kind of ongoing Hurricane Sandy recap postmortem progress. We did have our first 2 neighborhood association meetings last week. And altogether we had about 40 or 45 people attend the 2 meetings. Actually, incredibly, about 15 people from those 2 meetings who did offer to sign up that they might be interested in participating in the Community Emergency Response Team program, which was pretty fantastic news, as that's a program that will aid in our next response. In each of the meetings, we had a discussion similar to the discussion that we've had here. We went at, kind of an overview of the storm, some of the particular challenges that the storm caused for PSE&G, for New Jersey Transit, for us. Fortunately, as we mentioned, we were not hit as hard as some of our neighbors in New Jersey that experienced, an incredible amount of coastal flooding. We got lucky about that this time. I'm not going to go back and rehash all of that. Each of the meetings kind of takes on its own shape. We were really interested in hearing what people's questions were and responding to those, talking about methods of communication that people used, didn't use, talking about things that went well for people during the storm, things that didn't. There was a heavy on the didn't, which really came down to, for the most part, people not knowing when their power is going to be restored and the communication problems from the utility companies, which is something that I'll mention a little bit more about in a second. So we have 5 or 6 more neighborhood association meetings scheduled. They are on our website as far as which neighborhoods at which time. People are obviously contact us if you're interested in attending one of those and you don't have the contact information for your neighborhood association leader. We'll put you in touch with them. We also have a survey on our website at southorange.org. It takes about 5 minutes to fill out, and that will allow us to gather kind of a quantitative feedback about what went well, what didn't go well, what areas of town were most out of power, how much people's commute was affected, and things like that. One of the things that we're trying to do is identify places where, every time the wind blows, every time it rains a little bit, the power goes out. We're not confident that PSE&G knows that information. So if we can gather some of that information and pass it along to them, maybe there are specific areas in towns that always experience problems that they could target a little bit more investment in. So again, encourage everybody to either attend one of those meetings or go on the website. Please fill out that survey. It just takes a couple minutes. It's really going to help us inform the way that we make decisions about what we need to do in the future. And at some point in February, when all that information's come back together and we've had the proper postmortems here with staff in Village Hall, as the Office of Emergency Management Coordinator, I'll be putting together a report for the board and for members of the public that basically summarizes our response, the number of calls, kind of the stats and figures like that, and also the things that we noticed that didn't go well, the things that we noticed that did go well, the improvements that we need to make in the future, and any policy or budget items that need to be decided that come out of that. There are a couple other pieces to that. One is that, as many people may or may not know, I've been trying to spend a certain amount of time after the board passed a resolution here, asking for an investigation from the legislature and the Board of Public Utilities of PSE&G of sharing that resolution with other towns. A number of other towns have passed it, and there's a whole bunch more that are queued up right now. Probably 15 or 20 altogether, the towns that have passed and are queued up for their first meetings for their first action meetings in January. We feel that will help make a strong statement to the utility companies and to the Board of Public Utilities that there is frustration at the local level. From that, I've also worked with the League of Municipalities on some of that outreach, and they did schedule a hearing with the Board of Public Utilities, with PSE&G for mayors in towns where they have PSE&G service area. They had a number of those hearings for JCP&L towns, and so now we're going to do one for PSE&G as well. So that'll be another opportunity. I know I've personally spoken with the PSE&G president twice about some of these things, so that's one more opportunity to have that conversation with the Board of Public Utilities present to talk about that. Additionally, I've asked Essex County and the Essex County Office of Emergency Management for a meeting, which we have scheduled before the end of January as well, to talk about what kind of technological improvements we could make on the OEM side of things, municipal and county, to make up for some of the slack of what isn't happening at PSE&G as far as properly managing the outage information and making sure that people are getting accurate updates about the status of their restoration, and that local governments are getting accurate updates as to the status of restorations. So that's a meeting that we'll have talking about basically an idea that I mentioned at the press release we had here when Assemblyman McKeon announced the bills that they were sponsoring to require utility companies to invest in better pole construction. That would be creating basically a spreadsheet in Google or some other cloud service that would allow, at the county level, and allow each municipal office of emergency management access to that to, in real time, live update this one master spreadsheet of all the outages in the county. And that's something that we're not really sure whether PSE&G has one document like that. At least we should have it, and then we can kind of fill in some of the communication gaps that exist right now and make sure that all of our emergency resources are going to the right places. So that's exciting. Hopefully we can, as a municipality and as a county, be a leader in technological innovation to help manage information during these crises. Last update is the Public Information and Marketing Committee. We finally had our first meeting last week, a week ago from tonight, and it was a really, really fantastic meeting. The energy and intelligence and enthusiasm that we have from the residents and really everybody that's on the committee is pretty incredible. We have a lot of people with a lot of skills in this town, especially in the marketing and PR and media fields. And it's amazing how they're all committed to this group. The way we wanted to organize it, and I'll give you just a quick rundown of the projects that we're going to be looking at in the beginning. The way that we wanted to organize it was to have a committee that's kind of less sitting in a committee for a couple hours and just talking about whatever comes to mind, but breaking tasks up into very discrete pieces, assigning smaller work groups of 2 or 3 people to each of those projects, and allowing those small work groups to have ownership of the project to see them through from the beginning to the end. And that way give people something more that they can work on, and also some concrete goals that they can look forward to accomplishing. So the 5 projects that we identified as top priorities that we're going to work on is developing a social media strategic plan and implementing that plan. That includes things like creating an official village Facebook account, talking about how we actually use that Facebook account, how that's going to be managed, what tools we're going to use to manage those things, how we archive the records there, and talking about then how we actually use these tools to market the town, to get information to our residents during emergencies, things like that. We have another work group that is going to be providing feedback on our website redesign process. So as we get some design comps from our web designers, as everybody should know at this point, we're redesigning the village website. Wanted to make sure that we got some resident input as far as functionality. We're lucky because some of the people on this committee actually have direct experience working on these things, so they'll be getting some of the feedback or giving feedback to us and to the web design company, MetaRhythm, about usability, functionality design, things like that. One of the other projects is working up formal communications and social media policies for the village. Email policies, who's allowed to post on these social media accounts, what kind of content gets posted, what we do with our village email addresses, whether we need a disclaimer on them or not, what kind of information we can collect from those emails that come in. For example, if everybody who emails the village, are we allowed to add those email addresses into a newsletter that the village sends out, or into the emergency notification system? So looking at best practices from other municipal governments, we have great representatives like, for example, Paul Roth from the school board, who will provide the school's perspective on their policies on these things, and that will trickle down to a handbook for employees of the town and how they use social media and the kind of level of respect or professionalism that we expect from our employees as well as elected officials. And the two last projects, one is creating a more cohesive village branding and identity system. So for example, updating our letterhead, envelopes. One of the things that we're lacking is, a township seal or village seal on our podium. All those kind of things like that kind of get overlooked unless you have full-time staff working on them. We actually have some branding and identity professionals on this committee that are going to help us put together kind of a more cohesive, modern look for the town. And the last piece is looking at some sort of way to create an online citizen input community where residents can give their input on issues that the village could consider. Sort of a discussion board, but something that's geared towards people being productive and doesn't allow anonymous commenting, and is actually kind of created for the purpose of helping bring ideas to the surface, help actually benefit the town, not really like a gossip column, which is kind of what some people are stuck with using now. So we think there's a lot of energy among people in the community to provide input online. We want to figure out a way to do that constructively. There are a whole bunch of different options that are out there, from ones that big cities use to smaller towns, hosted, not hosted, free, monthly fees. So there's a whole bunch of different things. The Public Information and Marketing Committee will kind of put together all the options and try and figure out some way to help quantify people's ideas about things in town. The White House has, for example, a section of their site called We the People, where you submit petitions, and once the petition reaches a certain number of signatures, the administration formally responds. And so it'd be interesting, we're talking about exploring that. If you get 100 signatures or 200 or whatever it is on your petition, then that policy goes to a board committee for official review and recommendation. And there's a real opportunity there to allow people to give their input into how we make decisions, and in a way that's constructive and productive. And there's a real amazing educational opportunity for the community. And I'll say this one last piece before we move on to the next, is that there was a recent petition that was put on the White House website, and the petition was for the United States to immediately begin construction of a Death Star. And the petition got the required number of signatures, and the White House administration formally responded. And they did an incredible job of, in that, capturing the energy and kind of playfulness, but also interest in some of these things that people clearly had by submitting something like this and getting so many signatures that it actually surpassed the threshold. They were able to talk about the space program and science and education funding, and as well as did make sure to state that it was the policy of their administration that they're not in the business of planet destruction, so that wasn't going to be one of the things they considered. And so there's just a really cool opportunity for citizens and government to interact in a positive but also kind of facilitated way. So those are the 5 projects that we're talking about. The 3 other real quick ones that we talked about as lower priorities was 311 system, e-government, and kind of a constituent relationship management system, figuring out some way to do better press outreach, and creating some sort of realtor task force where we can create a little more two-way dialogue with realtors about what they think is happening in town, why people are buying and selling, things like that. So we're going to schedule another meeting pretty soon, in the next couple weeks probably, so everyone can kind of reconvene and make sure everyone's on the right track. From that point forward, we're hoping to only meet once every couple months and allow each of these work groups to work on their projects in full. We're using Basecamp project management software to keep track of all of the discussions that are happening, so it's extremely well organized, archived. If there are any members of the community who are interested in any of these particular projects, you do not have to be on the committee to work on any of these projects. If there's a work group that's working on one of these and you have an idea, contact me and we'll put you in touch with the people that are working on that project. We want anyone to be able to be involved as possible, while still keeping the groups kind of manageable. And that is the update from the Public Information and Marketing Committee, and that's everything I've got. Mr. Lewis?
On the Village Hall renovation project, I had hoped to have a comprehensive update memo by last week for discussion this week. Unfortunately, we were waiting on and continue to wait on some additional information. We had met just before the holidays with our architect and project manager. Some of the issues that have arisen, we did receive back the asbestos abatement updated study. What they have identified is more asbestos that needs to be abated than what was originally contemplated. I think we've discussed this before. The original idea was focused on a report that was done quite a while ago, mostly in connection with occupation, and for example, envision just leaving asbestos that's in this room in the ceiling encapsulated, not removing it in connection with the reconstruction. That has to be remediated. So the asbestos quantities have gone up. That has triggered us to now do some additional due diligence. We've actually, our engineer made contact with an asbestos abatement contractor who got a copy of the report, has looked at the building plans, and will come back and give us what we think would be a reasonable, an estimate to rely on for budgeting purposes. A couple other items like that we're waiting for. I do anticipate all that information this week, so I will work with the engineer, our architect, and our project manager will then compile all that and get a report out, which we can then have to you before the next meeting. Third and Valley.
Actually, Barry, if I can stop you there, a couple questions on that.
Yeah.
Number one, can you please forward the minutes from the meetings you're having with the construction manager?
Yeah,
I believe you're meeting monthly, or every 2 weeks?
We went about a month because of the holidays, but we're generally it's 2 to 3 weeks. So
Can you make it
I'll get you
a
an update.
process that when you get those minutes, you
Yeah.
forward them to us so we can see them? That's number one. At our last meeting in December, you said you had the cost estimation from the 50% design plans. Is that true? And if so, can you please share that as well?
We can forward that, but that's when we then sat down and went through it line by line. That's where a lot of these questions came from, and then either the architect, project manager, people were tasked to do some more additional diligence. So I can certainly forward all those documents with the caveat. I'll put in there the caveat. Short of rewriting the whole report, I'll just say some of these, there were questions that would be addressed in the report. But I can immediately forward the documents out, but I'll just put the caveat in there. I'm not going to go back through, because that would be practically right the report when I forward it. So I'll just forward them immediately, with the understanding that when you get the report, there may be some gaps filled in and some margin changes.
And we had talked at, I guess it was the Public Works Committee back in November, we had talked that theoretically we were going to be going out for bid for the asbestos abatement plans and specs at the December meeting. And here we are in January, and, so where are we? I mean, that's,
For
I know the
preparation of the plans and specs or the actual work.
we were going to put out there was an
There's
RFP.
an RFP out currently. I'm not sure when the due date is. It's imminent if it hasn't already come. I don't think it's come yet. For the preparation of the asbestos abatement specs. I can verify the date, but that is out. And so as soon as we get that, we'd have to ideally make an award. Well, I think we timed it to be able to make the award on the 28th. Prepare the specs. Then they prepare the specs, then we go out to bid for the abatement.
Yeah, it's on the website.
Yeah, I'm not connected at the moment. Does it say what the return date is, Howard?
January 15th.
Just tomorrow.
Yeah, I knew it was this week.
Thank you. So what's your current estimation of when we'll be out of this building? Again, it keeps slipping. Every time we talk, it slips another month.
We, I think when we get these tomorrow, the first, what ultimately is going to drive the vacating the building is the asbestos abatement. So when we review the proposals tomorrow, although we won't have a formal award to anyone, we will know who the apparent local bidder is. We'll then contact them to try and really pin them down on a timetable of when they would anticipate having the specs ready to go out to bid, given their experience, expertise in the field, how long they think you generally should have those out on the street, so to speak, to get a bid, and then what they would anticipate the lead time. So I'm hesitant to speculate now, but I would have a much better idea after, say, Wednesday when we talk to this person and say, okay, assuming we award to you on the 28th, when we have the specs done, how long do they need to be out to bid? 2 weeks, a month? I don't know this field. And then when we award, how long to mobilize, like would a contractor typically be ready to go in 2 weeks of award, a week, a month? I don't know what's involved in the process. So one thing, again, once we know tomorrow who our apparent low bidder is, prepare the specs, we can then tap into them, get their expertise, get their sort of timeline, and I certainly can get you that this week, as soon as we talk to them. Is that it on that?
Yep, you can continue.
Third Valley, reminder, we do have the plan amendments on for a public hearing and adoption at our next meeting. I believe it possibly at that next meeting, and if not, shortly thereafter. We're targeting, particularly given our new meeting format of action items on the second meeting, I'm pushing, and I know Mr. Baumann is pushing to try and get the redevelopment agreement done for the 28th, because we don't want to wait.
So you're going to have a resolution on the 28th for Third Valley?
For the redevelopment agreement, we already have on the second reading on the plan amendment, which is an ordinance that we introduced back in December. But our goal is to have the redevelopment agreement on. Working with them now that we kind of know the parameters of the plan amendment, we have discussed and raised the issue. We're actually having a meeting. We do conference calls fairly regularly, but we're actually meeting in person tomorrow with them tomorrow for a couple hours to go through a lot of things, including some of these redevelopment agreement issues, but also the relocation of the rescue squad. We have broached the issue with them both for expediency and cost savings of them actually GCing and taking care of the construction of a new rescue squad facility rather than us going through the bidding process that would just drag the time out. We'll have a better handle on that, but they were not against the idea. So we'll be meeting with them tomorrow afternoon. BIFAS, the South Orange Common site, we did tonight, have the second reading on that financial agreement. Those construction plans I know went down to DCA in Trenton because the use class of that building, it required a review by DCA. Those went down prior to the holidays, probably it was in mid-December. I'll try and do a follow-up and see if we know what the status of those are, but we're optimistic that, and I know the redeveloper has indicated his hope to start breaking ground here in the spring. Again, a reminder, I know the village president, I think, mentioned it at the beginning of one of our meetings earlier, but there is a budget workshop coming this Tuesday, January 22nd at 7:30. Things are starting to come into better focus. We got some of the numbers. I believe we may have rolled over and closed out the books. So we're getting the numbers in to really start finalizing it. In the interim, we got our insurance renewal numbers are firm now. Our one heads up, we did get our assessment from the joint meeting. It is going up considerably. It's attributable to the expenses they've incurred in that Occidental litigation. We're going to have a recommendation on how to address that, and I'll include that, be prepared to discuss it at the budget workshop. Just give that as a heads up. I've met with, I think, most all the department heads now. We're fine-tuning and finalizing the capital budget. That will also be addressed at the budget workshop, and I'll be providing materials in advance of that, so later this week, because that's this coming Tuesday. We also are moving towards, and actually have this Thursday, the sale of the bonds to take out our bond anticipation notes. It's done via an online auction. I'll be participating or watching it. I think the finance chair is going to join me as well. Obviously, bond counsel or advisors will be on there. So we'll have an idea at that point. That won't really impact this year's budget because those bonds that are sold, the payments aren't due until the 2014 budget, but it'll certainly give us an idea of where we're going in the future on that. I think there's a number of other things, but I suspect, or some of them actually aware, that are going to be brought up by respective committee chairs, folks weighing at that time. I don't know if we have things to do with this.
I have one quick question, and this is real important because we discussed this in detail last year, that we would get on a calendar year schedule for evaluations, and I want to make sure that all of them will be completed by the end of December. That means the department, the end of January, I'm sorry.
Right.
No problem.
Okay, the end of January. That means the department heads and then the departments also have to have theirs completed.
Yeah, and I
everybody.
I've spoken to a number of the department heads. I don't know if I've gotten to all of them yet. Made that to them. They so I would get the roads.
And you're gonna have yours
Yes.
done? Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Rothler, could you give just a quick 30-second update for East Orange Water, if there's anything public that can be updated at this point?
The, all of the discovery in the East Orange water matter has been stayed by the special master while he attempts to bring the parties to settle the case. Last week, I attended a settlement conference along with other members of our firm and Trustee Levison at a meeting with all counsel for the other parties, East Orange Water and Newark, with the special master, and we began to set the stage for temporary and more permanent solutions to the VOC problem and begin to address the other issues that we have of concern, contract issues and ongoing contract. The special master has made these negotiations confidential. I've sent the trustees a copy of an email summary that the special master provided to us, and I will be this week providing a much more detailed memo to the trustees, delving into each of the issues in greater detail, pointing out some of the pitfalls, some of the open issues, and some of the goals that we have in the negotiation.
Thank you. Okay, Finance and IT Committee?
Yeah, and just before I start, I'd like to have Barry, excuse me, I'd like to have Barry say something about our Barnabas Health program that we've now implemented.
Right. Yeah, and I think we had mentioned this at a prior meeting. We had met with, one of the concerns I had was seemed to be sort of the random, for lack of a better word, or sort of haphazard method that we had, and no real consistent source for workers' compensation claims, directing injured employees to pre-employment physicals, sick verification, third IMEs, all those things. We met with and spoke with a couple of people. We ultimately, our recommendation is, and it's really more designation. They're already an approved doctor in our joint insurance, the JIF workers' comp program. St. Barnabas has a program, corporate care. Our office, they actually have it at all their different locations, but ours is in the West Orange by the hospital. So it creates a relationship where they're essentially our exclusive provider, if you will. We will be directing any and all workers' compensation claims there. They then have the full suite to refer them out to any experts as needed. We'll also be utilizing them for our pre-employment physical or sick verification, those types of things. Has a real benefit, I think, of having a consistent relationship with a doctor who understands our policies, our things. They are also going to work with us to develop return to work and light duty policies that we do not currently have, that will allow us and will allow our employees in appropriate circumstances to return to work rather than be out on extended leave, has been the case in the past. They'll be involved in our drug and alcohol testing and a number of the other things. And by developing this sort of sole source relationship, then again, we develop that relationship where they know the village and what the village's policies and procedures are. They also develop a consistent record of each employee, particularly with new employees starting with pre-employment physicals and going forward, of what the medical history is that can frequently benefit the employee as well by getting that consistent treatment. But I think it's going to be a significant step in getting a better handle on our sick leave or workers' comp leave, ensuring that our employees are getting appropriate care, and at the same time ensuring that when they're eligible to, they are returning to work.
And should have a financial impact as well.
Yes, by the return to work and limiting sick time.
A couple of the items. We talked about a contract management system. We've decided on implementing one called Contract Logic. It's part of a resolution this evening, the budget transfer resolution. We now have enough money in our capital improvement fund to establish our capital, at least initial capital budget. Two items that I know that are priorities are roads and curbs, and as well as our CAD RMS system for the police department, which was brought out by the report. I would hope that we would have the initial capital budget by our next meeting. Is that correct?
It's possible.
The other, which Barry had indicated before, that we have a significant increase in the fees that we are generating out of the joint meeting, and we'll keep the sewer fee flat this year at $260, but we will put a special assessment on to cover this extra component that's covering the litigation that we're going through with Occidental. One of the points, very strong, we have a petition up on a website. We need people to sign on to that website expressing that they agree to passing some legislation which would ultimately exempt us from this litigation. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars potential that can happen out of this litigation.
What would you said you're going to have a special assessment. Any idea what that might be per resident?
It's a range of $25, $30 per
rough
unit.
numbers, yeah, I would say roughly $25. And to Trustee Levison's point, the desire is, because we know this is almost entirely attributable to that litigation, we're optimistic that there's going to be some sort of a settlement that's going to come to an end, that we'd rather have it segregated and rather than rolled into the fee, because then it just stays in the fee even if it gets resolved. And candidly, so that the public is aware of what it's for, and it may generate some additional public participation in this petition and sort of demanding a solution to it.
Yeah. And the timing is critical now because it's been listed for a hearing in the Assembly Committee, I think either this week or next week. So, you know, if people are listening, they should tune in and sign that petition quickly.
Do you want to just a few moments on what that legislation is about, what it does, the New Jersey Spill Act?
Yeah, it's a change in the definition of what is covered. In essence, the state legislature has forced municipalities to provide sewer collection and treatment systems, and it, in a piece of legislation, exempted the effluent that results from that from these suits. But there's been an interpretation by DEP that runs counter to that definition. And so this is a piece of legislation that clarifies the definition so that we would not be liable for collecting, treating, and then returning that effluent, treated effluent, to a body of water.
The website that you can go to is njspillactbill.com. There's a petition there. You can sign the petition. All of that helps in moving this thing forward.
One quick thing about that, let me ask the board a question. Right now, the only things that are really getting posted to our official Twitter account are what gets posted to the website and then any emergency updates. And we have not been posting anything else because we haven't created any policies. So I don't want to do anything that people aren't okay with. But is this something that we have passed a resolution,
right,
basically saying this, is everybody okay with, because we do have now a lot of followers on our Twitter, are people okay with putting it out? Any objection to doing that?
Regarding this petition?
Yeah.
Absolutely, because
Okay.
it's time sensitive and it's a huge liability that we need to avoid.
Okay. All right, I'll do that.
I'm assuming it should have been tweeted before because I put up
Is it on?
Oh, the
article.
notice.
Yes.
Okay. We'll do it again.
But as many people, putting it on Facebook or tweeting it, it's extremely important.
And can it be tweeted in a call to action that's very simple, so, people will, be engaged, and then if they want more detail, they can read
It's
the
on that
article.
website.
I'll ask you how to write the tweet, Deborah. Yeah.
Going along with the bond refunding that we're going to do on Thursday, we have another bond that we're looking at, which is the ECIA loan, which will have to be a normal bond rather than a municipal bond. We will have something right after that to take care of that bond. That's going from a 9% bond, hopefully, to something that's less than 4%.
What did you were talking about the bond?
The EC, yeah.
ECIA loan that we have, which is bad money, which is called bad money. In essence, we can't use it or can't apply for municipal bonding. We have to
Yeah, tax exempt bonding.
tax exempt bond.
Can't be taxed.
Yeah.
Tax exempt bonding. So we have to go to the regular market. We just need to get some further details from, basically from Steve.
And how much is still owed on that?
$1.5 million?
Okay.
2.6.
2.6, okay.
And it saves us about $160,000 a year.
No, just.
We have completed the Everbridge contract. We should be starting that conversion very shortly. A project plan will be put together by Stan. The Google email migration is currently going on right now. They're moving our history over to Google. Yeah, as I said before, the RFP status, we have a number of RFPs. One of them is that we're put as a priority is to look at the CAD RMS systems. We're reviewing a number of various vendors who provide that type of a system. As Alex said before, tax collection kiosk, that has we're planning on putting a laptop at the tax collector's office for during the tax collection so that we can have people who come in with checks in hand can actually use the online system rather than using a check. It significantly saves time in the tax office. Next meeting is, just the last thing, the next meeting is going to be on February 5.
Thank you. Legal and Personnel Committee?
Yes, just want to talk 2 items. Our next full meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 28th. We are going to go into a shared service agreement for the prosecutors. We're looking into that, and when we finish the process, we'll see if that's something that we're going to do. The other thing that I want to talk about is we'll be looking into the professional services agreement. We've had some discussion about it. We'll continue the discussion in our legal services committee meeting. And
Professional services agreement for what?
well, we've talked basically for the
Legal risk manager.
yes, and also our council position.
Right, you guys are taking risk manager and village council.
Yes,
And bond council.
and bond council.
Legal and personnel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Planning and zoning?
Planning and zoning, I know Michael's gonna read me the agenda items that we go over, but the RFP for the village planner, we're gonna meet on February 7th with the planning and zoning committee, representatives from the planning board and representatives from the Board of Adjustment to go over that, assuming that date works. I think you said that February 7th, I think you... It doesn't? No. Does it work for you, Michael?
I'll have to look and get
All right.
back to you.
We have, I thought you responded yes. So, because the only no's I got were January 30th, was the other date, and people said...
I can't hear you.
Anyway, so it was that's the date that's set right now, so it's just to go over the things, but I'll send you the RFP responses so you can look at them and give me your input on them.
All right, and that's to review
Okay.
what?
The planner, for the village planner. I mean, most likely we'll use the same planner the planning board uses, because they use that person the most, but we just wanted to participate in the discussion with them.
Village, you want me to just read it?
Okay, read it, yeah.
And chime in as you like. We discussed the Village Hall renovation
Okay.
project, which the administrator spoke to. I don't think there was a whole lot.
Right.
That's probably more current. Generators.
We talked about the generators as per the Sandy follow-up about, which buildings have them, I think the Public Works Committee was taking that topic on, taking it over from us.
Road projects, and this was, we talked about it also at Public Works Committee, which met a day or two before. And the update from that is that Fairview Avenue, the project is obviously stopped for the winter, but they've made good progress. The curbs and the islands are installed. And they'll finish up with the top coat in the spring. As far as projects that are going to be undertaken in 2013, it will be Blanchard and Crest and Thorndon, and most that was funded with 2012 capital, and then money that is likely to be funded with 2013 capital will be Kingsland Terrace, Kingsland Court, and Rinda Road. Hartford will probably be pushed off, and Terrell will be included this year as well because we do have a grant, so we want to take care of that as well. Planning Board of Adjustment updates. Obviously, Seton Hall came forward with their application for the University Center.
Right.
Mary Lawn came forward with their demolition permit and soil disturbance permit, which was deferred till the February meeting.
Right.
New use permits.
And we still need the permit on the gate. Tony Guenchi's supposed to get back to us about the security gates and the ordinance and how it impacts and what changes. He's going to look at the other locations that have gates in town, because there are some other gates, so make sure what other gates there are, and to make sure that the current ordinance is enforced, and as well as look at other towns' ordinances.
Mr. Lewis, you haven't made contact with the manager down at...
No, I haven't.
Okay. Do you have his contact? Did you
Yeah, I
have
did
okay.
find it.
West Montrose Lighting. This is a carryover from several years ago when we first did the light walk in that neighborhood to add additional lighting.
Sal and the police chief had identified locations of where we need additional lighting, whether it be gas lights, electric lights, or solar lights was in question. And we'd asked that we split it up over 3 or 4 years by putting $25,000 to $30,000 in the budget each year for that, and go along with the recommendations based on how Sal and the police chief felt was the most prudent way to go forward. The issue of solar lights, there's only certain locations where you can put the solar. They have to meet certain, you have to have enough sunlight, and most likely be at corners or intersections. So the gas lights or solar panels to install are far more expensive than putting up gas light, but the maintenance is much lower in the long run. But Sal was going to come back with the exact plan of where we would put the gas lights. So I forgot how many we could put in a year for the price, but he was going to come back with an exact plan, and he was going to discuss with you, Barry, about the budget amount that we would put in for the total amount. But that's where we stand with it. We'd like to start doing some of these this year.
And last topic, Irvington Avenue, which has been a hot topic for quite some time, about what to do to re-examine that business district to try to gentrify that area.
Yeah. The development committee prefers to work on Valley Street first, and thinks that's more important topic and more important for the future of the village than Irvington Avenue. And the question is, do we want to set up another committee or a study group about taking the vision plan recommendations and moving forward with Irvington Avenue as per the vision plan, or having another group, even if it's the planning and zoning committee, to meet with residents and stakeholders in that area to talk about potential thoughts, ideas that we could do. And using the vision plan as the guideline, because that they already met with most of the stakeholders and came forth with their recommendations and suggestions.
One of the, on that topic, one of the ideas that's been kind of bouncing around in my head, and I've started to put the pieces together, maybe continue to work on it with the Planning and Zoning Committee, is kind of doing that for the Irvington Ave / Tuxedo Park / Ivy Hill of Newark area, but doing it with South Orange, Newark, and Maplewood all on board together. So maybe I'll keep Planning and Zoning in the loop on this, or come to the meeting and talk about it. But what I wanted to do was at least initially get together representatives from Tuxedo Park, Irvington Ave Business District, Seton Hall, Newark, and Maplewood, and get down at one table and say, what are our options? Because that area, a space where you've got 3 towns that have a corner, it's never going to receive the kind of focus that the core of the town does, but it's still an important area, especially for the future of our town. So if you want me to come to planning or send you, or however you want to coordinate
That's
that.
fine. And I think it's very important that Seton Hall take a more active role in this,
Yeah,
because
correct.
Seton Hall is clearly the
Beneficiary.
Seton Hall is clearly the main focus in that
They're
neighborhood.
the big player there.
You know, they need more residential, they need more expansion, and they're the ones who could most actively improve that area.
And I'd like to share with you, the Ivy Hill Neighborhood Association is a very, very engaged and active and robust association.
The one
So-
from Newark?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a very,
Right.
one of the most active and well organized neighborhood associations.
It would be interesting to have a meeting with the group, the various groups, and maybe hold it at Seton Hall.
Yeah.
Is that Ron Rice's?
Yeah. Yeah, I've reached out to him.
Ron Rice, and also there's a couple of other people who are very, very active in the community besides that.
If you have any of
And
that
also
contact
one of the
information, 'cause I met some of them a while ago when
Houston
the Newark
Stevens.
Police Department opened that precinct there. Some of those neighborhood groups
Right.
came out for that.
You know Houston Stevens?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's very active
Okay.
with that group.
It didn't really open.
Soft opening.
Soft opening.
But anyway, so I'll talk to you more about that, because I don't know exactly how to do it, but I would assume that there are some opportunities from the county and state level for doing economic development between 3 municipalities in a section like that.
Yeah, I really like that idea, and to have it hosted by Seton Hall. And it really makes sense. I mean, if we try to do something on our own, and there are two other towns, you know, that are part of that, it's
The
not,
future
it's
of all
never
those
going to
groups
work.
is intertwined, so we
Yeah.
might as well all be at the
Right.
table together.
Right.
So I'll talk to you more about that.
I don't know if you want to do transportation committee now, or hold off on it.
What do we have left? If we could get through the next couple quickly. Yeah. Public safety?
Yeah, so Trustee Gould and I met with the two chiefs on December 20th. We had one resident that joined us expressing concerns about speeding on Finley Place near his home. He had spoken to the village engineer who had recommended speed humps, and based on our process, we referred him to the Transportation Committee. And I know Mr. Peterson is here, so perhaps he'll speak to that when he gives the Transportation Committee update later, where that goes, but it's now been transferred from Public Safety to Transportation. We talked about the ICMA best practices study. One of the items in there was about cleanliness of the police department, and one of the obviously follow-up items was that an RFP had been issued for new cleaning service.
No, it hasn't been issued yet.
It was issued. It was issued, and it was posted on the website. Do you know the status of the return of that?
I thought it was
I think that was part of that package that we did a couple weeks ago.
She was holding for the trailers. I think she was holding for the trailers.
we were, but then I thought.
I thought it was posted. I thought I saw it on there in December.
I'll double check.
In any event, that was one of the items, obviously, that would help some of the low-hanging fruit. Big item, obviously, was for the administrator and the attorney to meet with the police union to discuss some of the bigger items, some of the other recommendations that came out of that report, such as potential schedule changes and other things. So that's an action item on their plate. We talked about the UCR, the Uniform Crime Reports for 2011, which were just published at that point, and talking a little bit about where we were winding up for 2012, since we were meeting a week before the year ended. As of that point, at the end of 2011, the robberies for 2012 were expected to be down, and violent crime expected to also be down from 2011. So, again, so far so good. Things were looking in the right direction. He thought overall Part 1 crimes, the chief thought overall Part 1 crimes would pretty much track to where they were in 2012 as they were in 2011. But again, those two particular areas, robberies and violent crime in general, would be down. What else? The Scotland Road traffic light and speed enforcement also transferred to the Transportation Committee, who they'll give a comment on. We started to talk about expansion of surveillance cameras, and we segued into the capital requests from the police department, and there was a whole list of requests. I assume they've all gotten to you at this point, Mr. Lewis. The CAD system, training, a new 911 system, and Chief was going to add cameras, and he also thought we may be able to be eligible for an additional automated license plate reader with no cost. Replacement of the aerial ladder truck. The Chief Markey shared with us that the truck was scheduled to be completed earlier in this month, early in January, and we were supposed to take delivery of it tomorrow, January 15th. So they were going down to New Orleans to inspect it and have it driven back. A dedication is expected to be held in the spring once the fire department is trained on the new apparatus, as the chief would call it. And that's it. I did ask the chief if he knew what was going on with Redflex, because we did go ahead and award that contract, and the next step for Redflex was they were going to do their study. Chief didn't have an update on that. I don't know if you do, Barry, but Chief was going to follow up with the vendor on that.
Is that everything?
Yes.
Thank you. Public Works, did anybody go?
Janine's not here, but I have the notes. Howard, if you don't mind, I'll do just what I did for planning and zoning. I have the agenda here, and please chime in, because you were there as well, Howard. Is that all right? Again, we talked about Village Hall renovation. Sorry, hang on a second. Capital budget requests for engineering and DPW, and again, I think the response was that we were waiting for that process to begin. A resident, Mr. Jano, came to speak about persistent flooding problems that occur on Wyoming Avenue near his property. And do you recall the action item out of that, Howard?
I think Sal was going to continue on looking at it, but it's a county issue.
Correct.
Part of it is a county issue.
Howard had requested we talk about next steps after single stream, and talk about perhaps alternate plans with South Orange disposal.
Yeah, and I have a report on that as well.
Please.
We had a meeting with South Orange Disposal this past week, where they officially are now going to implement 3 new price points for pickup of solid waste. They're going to have a $24 a month schedule for 1 can once a week, a $28 a month scheduled for 2 cans once a week, and they're going to have a $35 excuse me, a month scheduled for 2 cans twice a week. They will no longer accept grass cuttings in plastic bags. They will institute a program where you can put grass cuttings in a barrel, and that will be for an annual fee. So this will be going in effect April 1st. Their website should be indicating the new fees.
Are they going to be promoting this, or people just call up and request them?
They will promote it on their website.
But that's it. It's not going to show up on your bill.
Well, yes, it does show up in your bill.
But you have to.
That's scheduled.
These
yes.
options will show up on your bill. What's the current rate?
The current rate is 68 every 2 months.
So that's 34.
Which is the 34, which would still be the 34.
35.
Okay, so it's going up.
What were the $3 tiers? I got you on the amounts. What were the dollars? 1 can per week is how much?
24.
And 2 cans per week?
28.
28. And 2 cans twice a week?
35.
Thank you. Anything else you want to share on that item, Howard?
No, yes.
Road projects, again, we talked about it. Both committees, same update as before. Crest Drive improvements. Howard, anything you want to share on that?
No, there's nothing.
Firehouse data room improvements.
I think they had a,
I think it said anticipates completion by the middle of January.
yeah, they had a punch list this past week. And I think they tested the generator. Barry?
That's what I'm looking at Stan.
Oh.
Stan has the update. Yeah, the generator, I think they did test.
Right, and they created a punch list.
It's winding down, it's basically.
They punched out the facility. And they have a list of items that they made correct.
That was it.
Okay, thank you. Rec?
Okay, we met on the 27th of December. Our next meeting is going to be the 31st of January. That's a week later than it's scheduled, or we've moved it on the schedule now, so it's going to be the 31st. One of the topics we're going to have at that meeting is talk about the street fair. We've invited Ross Fields and Darrell Walker. We're going to talk about raising the quality of the participating vendors and also working on a contract with Mr. Walker, including financial terms. At our last budget meeting, we had talked about having a service level agreement for YouthNet. I'm working on that now with Diane Malloy at YouthNet, and should have that for our next meeting on the 28th, and I'll circulate it to everyone prior to the meeting so you can see it ahead of time. The pool agreement with Maplewood, our one-year trial agreement, the attorneys are still working on that, and I anticipate
Pretty much done.
Pretty much
Probably
done.
This week. Yeah.
Okay, so when it's done, we'll announce that, probably at the next meeting or the next conference gender meeting. Also at the meeting, we talked about having a new system for guest passes. We'll do something that Mr. Rosner suggested, which is called 5 after 5. So the guest passes will be $5 after 5 o'clock every day. We'll see if that makes people happy and brings a couple more people in after 5 o'clock. Another thing I wanted to run past everybody is the rec committee's been talking quite a bit about opening the pool on Memorial Day weekend. And my understanding is, and Barry, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is you have put aside money in the budget for that, up to 20. We don't know exactly what it's going to be. It's up to about $25,000 in the budget. We're not sure if it's going to cost that much. But I wanted to just get a straw poll from the board if they're comfortable in going this direction before we have Kate go any further with working on getting this open for Memorial Day. So
And we're talking for weekends only.
weekends only. So it'll be weekends only from Memorial Day through Father's Day, and then it starts opening normally.
And what is the additional cost?
We're not quite certain
Just
yet.
a guesstimate. You don't have
25,
But we
20.
originally told from the cost of the help and so forth was $12,000 to $15,000. But then there's the extra cost for the pool filter, chemicals, and if we have to get part-timers for the DPW. So
To open it,
the
yeah.
total
just
package should be no more than 25, but we assume it will be less. That's worst case scenario. We also, it might be offset by an extra $500 from the food vendor. or
Right,
something.
there might be a little bit more revenue with that.
Now, I see that the bid for the pool food concession is posted to the website. Is that already as an add-on for those additional dates? I know you don't have to speak, Kate, but if you could just nod, or it's already. Thank you. That was a yes for anyone who can't hear that. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, I've gotten a number of questions from people about whether we can do this. That seems to be something that a good portion of our residents are interested in. Got a lot of questions.
Do I have any no's? Have I heard,
I'm fine with it. I think that, it's something to really give back to the community. That's one of the areas of recreation that is so highly used and valued in the community.
I'm definitely fine with that.
Yeah, well, it's been
I don't
boiling.
think
Well, I was going to say, it's one way to guarantee it's going to.
I don't think
guarantee it'll rain.
I don't think anyone's pushed it harder than I have, so I'm definitely in favor of it.
All right.
So.
Everyone else? No other comments?
I think you have a green light.
All right, so, just so you know, we reached out to Maplewood because now we're going to be 3 weeks ahead of Maplewood to see if there's a way their pool guys can help us open. And I know that Kate's been talking to the director of rec over in Maplewood to see if that's a way to maybe make that happen.
Are we going to get into an arms race between South Orange and Maplewood?
Yes.
Who's going to open the pool sooner?
Yeah. Well, we're going to put a bubble over it next.
That's right, the next is the bubble. Okay, that's great. And that's all I have to talk about.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, if Dan Peterson from the Transportation Advisory Committee, thank you for being so patient.
No problem, thank you all. And I'd like to enlighten you by
Oh boy, real color pictures.
Wow, that's impressive.
We just disconnected the whole meeting.
There you go.
That's it.
Oh, that's it. I'm sorry, no one else.
No more minutes.
That's it. Here, you
One
take
set.
that.
Oh,
You guys get
Extended battery.
How many?
We only
one
gave
there.
us one,
That's
but
okay.
we'll have
No,
three.
it's like we can share.
Oh.
Everybody have one? I made 10 copies, so you can vary a copy if you'd
All
like.
right, then there should be enough.
Oh,
Whatever, we'll share it.
Oh, here it is.
Whoa, whoa.
there we go. All right.
Okay, we have two principal items in front of you, though I would like to speak to two other things as well, just as long as I remember them. Michael, you had mentioned that there were a number of streets that were going through the repaving process.
Yes.
And now that we have a complete streets policy in place, we want to make sure that that work, whenever we touch a street, essentially is guided in its shape and form designed to facilitate mobility, walkability, et cetera, of cycling, and all those aspects of complete streets. So I'd like to touch base with you just to get a list of those, or Sal may have that list already, but
He does, but I'll shoot you an email for sure.
fantastic, very
Yeah.
good. So that would just be something in the course of our normal work we'll pick up. The second thing I do want to touch on after I give this piece of presentation is that we have done a roadway safety audit of the intersections of Prospect, Garfield, and Tishner, and that essentially was put up last year around June or so, and we discovered just literally last week that the barrels, which had constituted the form of the pilot, enabled us to actually test this thing without actually pouring concrete, were stolen, and so now we don't have the equipment that we need in place in order to actually affect the kind of transportation.
Wait, the barrels were stolen?
The barrels were stolen, apparently,
No.
yes. You know, a nice man in a white beat-up pickup truck with a mustache, apparently, according to two residents, kindly put them into his truck, and I don't know if they talked to him or what they did, but fundamentally, someone just drove in. drew
With a
him in.
mustache, you say?
Yes.
Yes. Only one guy, yes.
Do you have a white truck?
No, but they're not in my
Somebody
background.
check the parking lot.
Indeed, yes. Yes, so our next project, which I was hoping we could have used these in this Mayhew and Harding thing. But going forward in your budget considerations, that pilot was highly regarded by the folks in the Village Colonials neighborhood, and I've seen at least 6 or 7 positive feedbacks. Where were the barrels? What's happened to it? It really worked. We really liked it. And so our initial conclusions is that this had been a success and was well received by the community. And so I think at this point we're looking to actually turn it into a permanent installation. And it's a rather inconsequential thing of slight degree of grounded molding, you know, essentially creating a strip that you don't want to drive onto, and a few signs. So it's not a big deal, but we just want to make sure it makes it into the budget. Okay.
Wait, quick question.
Yes.
Just as far as the process for that goes, when how much time was left on the barrels being there before it was officially going to be concluded anyway?
I think it basically had run its course. We
Okay.
we had observed, for instance, a couple of instances. We actually went out and I actually went out and photographed how the barrels had moved because persons had either touched them with their bumper or rearranged them. So, but fundamentally, we got a sense that this thing can work from a mechanical perspective. From an operational perspective, it drives rather nicely. We haven't heard any complaints back, and we've heard a lot of positives from the neighborhood.
So when you go back to look at the barrels at the end, you're basically looking to see if it looks like there were impacts in the barrels or
Correct.
what information, I'm just curious, what information
Yes,
do they provide?
correct, right. So what we observed was that in a few cases, for instance, where you're heading northbound on Prospect, turning right onto Garfield, to go down Garfield, that a barrel or two had basically sort of been pushed out about 4 or 5 inches, which would indicate where the nose of your front bumper would actually have swept that area. But underneath, where the actual curve is, your wheel is still back 3 or 4 feet. So while the bumpers may actually cover this area, where we actually put the median itself will actually not be impacted by the wheel or by the bumper, of course.
We don't know if those were cars, trucks, or buses.
We don't know, of course. We expect to get all kinds of variety. Of course,
We
of course,
had
we did have went through football season, and
Right.
we did have
We
trucks
did
and-
guess that some buses would have to turn and make it a little bit tighter with the valves.
Exactly, exactly.
because on the
We
hill-
believe that for the most part that they'll fit, but if they don't fit, if it's a moving van, for instance, or a very large bus, it is designed to drive on.
Right.
So-
And by the way, Barry, Sal had done a rough estimate of what the cost would be to install this, so you can get that.
So we should have a placeholder for that.
Well,
We should have a placeholder for actually doing
Wow.
and implementing that.
that's
Dan,
awesome.
I had raised
Yes.
the question with Sal in an email this afternoon. when you sent around the report, one of the questions was, do we require a study, or can we do the same type of thing on Harding and Mayhew?
It was done after an RSA though. On
Is an RSA required?
Is an RSA required? We could do this ourselves, to answer your question. What I do believe in this particular instance, though, is that we're interacting with the county. And because the islands, which I will speak of in a second, do face onto a county road, and we're going to have to talk to Sanjay and his crew and the engineering department there, and basically after this process is concluded, bring them on board as well, because there will be some changes, not tremendous, but it is affecting their roadway. So having the RSA in our pocket does give us the legitimacy of having an outside professional firm as opposed to a couple of professionals sitting around a table, but an outside firm who's been contracted and whose license and everything is on the line to essentially produce a report saying we think this should be done or that should be done. So it's a process also from developing and forging consensus within the community. It means to be able to say, we've looked at all these different things, we've looked at all these different options, we've reached out to all these different stakeholders, we've seen it at different times and in different operational conditions, and professionally, this is what we think. And it's much easier for, I believe, for communities to get behind that kind of a report, and therefore that can lead to easier action. So as a process, it costs something. We could gin this up ourselves, but we might find ourselves fighting and not really coming to a conclusion in a timely fashion and wasting more time. So I think it's an expedient to get the thing actually done, though it will cost a little bit. Okay. Yes.
And we can talk more about this, or that was your...
Okay, well, just so I can familiarize everyone with the particular issue at hand, we were contacted by folks from the Upper Wyoming community who indicated that they had identified cut-through driving on Harding and Mayhew Road coming up over Hill and Toulouse, and essentially heading south towards South Orange Avenue in order to avoid the signal of Wyoming. And the other things that we heard were that speeds were very high on those roads. And we actually put out the traffic counter unit. We've got a few speeds up in the 50s and even into the 60s late at night. What we also got from the community was that when folks are coming eastbound down South Orange Avenue, they will make rather large, high-speed sweeping turns into Harding and into Mayhew. And they'll perpetuate those speeds of 40, 50, 60 miles an hour down Harding, which is unsigned, unstopped for 3 or 4 blocks, I believe, until you get to Toulouse, I think is the first stop. So there's rather long stretches wherein traffic has, just coming off the avenue, still proceeding at avenue speeds through the heart of the community. And of course, that presents real safety issues. So with the question of cut-through traffic and with the question of the higher speeds, we looked to identify some solutions that could actually prevent that. Now, when this originally came before public safety, you guys had identified a series of speed humps as a possible solution. We understand that there had been some pushback, that went in front of my house, this kind of thing. We've also identified that speed humps in general can work somewhat in terms of reducing speeds, but it's very localized. It's at that spot and place only, and it comes at what we consider a perceived devaluation of the value of the street and of the space and as one person from Mayhew succinctly put it, she said, when I see a road with a speed hump on it, I think that there's a problem there. This is a problem street, and I don't want to live on a problem street. Now, I mentioned that actually to Chief Jim Chalil the other day, and he said, well, actually, when you have the speed hump, doesn't that reduce the problem? You might say that, but when people are looking at this from a homeowner's perspective, they see this as something that they would rather have. So we looked to see if there were other devices which may actually emulate the problem.
Just because I'm the real estate agent up here, where have you heard that before? I've never heard anyone say that to me.
I heard that in our committee meetings.
Some of the neighbors did say that.
Yes.
That was their perception of it?
Perception.
Yes, that's their perception of speed humps. And it's not illegitimate. They are noisy. If you have one in front of your house, you might feel you're losing a few thousand off the price of your house. Are you selling today or tomorrow? Maybe that's not your question, but fundamentally people are not necessarily entirely in favor of them. It's a mixed bag. They have their benefits and they have their detractions. That aside, we identified 2 techniques that we thought could begin to approach and reduce some of the problems. One was to make the process of getting into the neighborhood a little bit more difficult, particularly from South Orange Avenue, so that you couldn't come flying down the hill at 60 miles an hour and find yourself on Hardy and still going 50, 60 miles an hour. And to that end, we proposed these islands that you see here, illustrated on the first and on the third page. And these are designed so that at Harding, which is the third one, you can turn eastbound into northbound from South Orange Avenue. In other words, you can make all 6 moves at this T here. It just regulates them so that you actually have to do them in a controlled fashion. You can't do them flying down the hill.
It forces you to slow down.
It forces you to slow down before you enter the neighborhood. And so as such, these act as a gateway and makes it a little bit more difficult. You know, right now, these are 130 feet wide openings, and so you will actually have to maneuver a little bit into essentially a standard 24-foot opening.
And you know, something I've just noticed personally on intersections like this.
Yes.
And I wonder if this is, you know, quantified in any of the information that you know, is that when coming out of a street like this, like Mayhew or Harding, there's a couple around town. Or if I'm coming out of Mayhew and I'm making a left, for example, so there's a lot of road on either side of me, on the right side and the left side, because I'm making a left, I'm starting as I'm pulling out onto South Orange Ave. So if I'm pulling from Mayhew or Harding onto South Orange Ave to make a left turn onto South Orange Ave, and I start to curve over to the left, it leaves open this huge amount of space to the right, and I've seen a lot of cars
go on the far
making
side.
a left from South Orange Ave onto that street, go in the little pocket that I leave on the right side.
Yes.
It's like unbelievably dangerous. If there was a car behind me, you know,
Yes.
you wouldn't really be able to see from that angle, and you're going right at, or someone crossing the street. They're not.
Yes.
They don't go around you. They go through that spot.
Exactly, and that was mentioned by a number of residents
Okay.
here, and they thought that was incredibly scary, and I have to agree with them. So this kind of thing will prevent that kind of insane driving behavior. Now, one of the things that we recommended for Mayhew in particular was that Mayhew not have the left onto South Orange or the left from South Orange. And the reason for that is, if you go to the 4th page here, you'll see an arrow diagram that shows the moves that would be made by cars either coming from eastbound South Orange Avenue, the orange, or coming from Mayhew onto South Orange in the yellow. And what we see instead is, in the red, this is the vehicle that's coming up from Wyoming. And our concern is that that vehicle, that car in the red arrow coming from Wyoming, can either strike or be struck by any one of those 3 vehicles. It's very, very rare to see what would be a opposite side street entrance to a standing queue, significant standing queue for a signal. It's not a typical kind of thing that's permitted where vehicles can cross across particularly a significant turning movement to be able to join into a queue. If cars are backed up on this queue on South Orange heading to downtown, there's no way that a vehicle trying to cut in from Mayhew can really actually get in until those cars have gotten the red light and moved on. In the meantime, he's hanging out there in the middle of the street and can easily get hit by somebody coming up from Wyoming.
Dan, a couple things,
Yes.
if I may.
Please.
As you well know, I live there, and
Yes.
we've talked about this, so I make that turn virtually every day. And while I agree with you in premise, a couple things worth noting. Number one, the intersection at South Orange and Wyoming essentially is a 4-way stop. When that light is red, it is red in all directions for a period of time. So that's one data point worth noting, particularly.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
So you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, it's always red in one direction and green in the other. There's times when it is a 4-way red in all directions.
That's only supposed to be during school hours, the 4-way red.
Yeah, well, which are but it is. When you push that cross button, it's red in all directions.
Okay.
The other thing is, making that left turn off of Mayhew onto South Orange Avenue. I understand your premise, and I don't disagree in concept, but surprisingly, it works. I think it's in large part because there's a signal at the top of the hill up by Newstead that also regulates the flow coming down the hill.
Sure, platoons the cars, yes.
So because of that timing, it's by the time the traffic clears on Wyoming, you do get a break. It's not like you're, oh my God, this car is flying down the hill and you're trying to merge in. So again, I appreciate your concern. The reason I say that is, just for the record, I did want to make clear, I heard from a number of the residents, and I know you got the emails
Yeah,
as
I
well.
have a couple, I have a letter or two actually, signed from two couples actually.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
thank
I
you.
just want to make sure, my point being, I'm not a traffic engineer, you are. I just want to make sure that when the RSA is done, that they look at all the options. They don't preclude, they don't go in with a preconceived notion of what the solution is. They look
Oh,
at
yeah,
this.
well, that's one of the beauties of the RSA thing, is that while we may show them some of the work that we've done already, it doesn't necessarily salt the field, so to speak. They're totally free to come up with whatever concepts and ideas, within the toolkit of traffic engineers in order to be able to address and solve these problems.
Yeah, as long as we're not going in and say, build us this.
Yes.
Right?
Well, that's part of the reason, and it's these kinds of, it should be this, it should be that it helps having an outside independent expert be able to assist in shaping those decisions.
Thank you.
Can
You
you
should also-
explain
you should
the, page 2?
Yes.
Can you finish on page 4 first?
Oh, sure.
Your orange arrow, which shows the cutting onto Mayhew.
The turning left onto Mayhew, yes.
Onto turning left onto Mayhew, of course, the cars actually start much sooner, and you put the island there, they have to do it the way you have it here.
That is why I've drawn it that way,
Okay.
yes.
Without the island there, they're cutting.
They're behind the yellow, as
parallel
was
to
described.
yellow,
or
essentially.
Practically, yes, that's correct. Leaving, and I do wish to point out, note the size, the length of that crosswalk that you have to cross
Yeah,
through
it's a-
there,
it's
okay?
a long
So,
distance.
it was told to me by one of the folks who attended that when they moved to the community, the crossing guard down at the far end of Wyoming and South Orange Ave in front of the school said, you will not cross your children here. You will not bring them here. You will bring them down Overhill. You will not bring them to South Orange Avenue. None of your children will cross here because it is so dangerous at
Right.
those large unprotected things.
Yeah, the island's definitely a good idea, and it definitely fits.
Right.
I sort of don't know if the left turns are gonna.
Right, so this will be the kind of thing that the RSA team can actually look into in greater depth and decide, well, is this safe, is this not safe?
Right.
All right? What I've potentially identified here is it's essentially 120 feet from when you have what I'll call first good sight distance to the actual point of contact. That gives you at 30 miles an hour, 44 feet per second. It's only basically about 3 seconds of time, which is not too bad, but at the same time, if you're not paying attention, and you're coming around that curve and somebody's there in the middle of the road, you're going to have a...
And there were a lot of kids who do walk up there, even though they're not supposed to, theoretically, but a lot of kids do walk up that street.
Right. Well, this will decidedly be a tremendous safety improvement for kids, children. Anybody who wants to walk up to the reservation doesn't have to do it on the south side of the street. They can do it on the north side of the street, for instance. So...
Are there standards as far as, because these are, I don't really walk around this area of town that much, but the couple times that I have, when I enter the crosswalk, I feel like I'm embarking on a journey.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna, I mean, this is a long ways to go. Who knows what could happen between me stepping foot on the road and, 10 minutes later when I get to the other side of the road. I mean, I'm just curious, are there standards about, crosswalk length, optimal crosswalk length, based on, the average speed of travel on a road like this?
Well, I wouldn't say that there's standards, but what is happening these days is that these kinds of things are being recognized for the dangers that they are, and even in other locations where it's not coming in at a skew and it's quite so large, they're actually bringing the curbs out into the road itself, and we can see that, for instance, on Ridgewood Road in Maplewood, where they've actually...
We see in South Orange.
And we see the South Orange, right here in the middle of town, exactly. Right on the South Orange Avenue, we bring the curb out, making for a shorter sidewalk.
We just did that down in the park, but when you come out of Meadowbrook, the little bump outs to make it easier to cross.
So that's the kind of treatment, but that's not what we're talking about in this case.
And
Can you explain page 2?
Page 2.
Before we get to page 2,
Okay.
one last question here. Do you know, or would this be part of
I'm
further
never going
study?
to be nice next time.
What the accident rate is for this section of road,
That would be part of the RSA.
Okay.
Yes, I don't have those
Okay.
immediately, but I believe the SPD has...
And I was just curious, I mean, I haven't heard of that being a particular problem area of accidents, but what you say makes a lot of sense, that there's a lot happening in a very odd configuration. So I'm curious to see some of the data.
It's slowing people going down Harding or Mayhew.
Of course, no, I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
curious
Yeah,
about that
and-
one point about the number of turns that are available in that one weird
It was
configured
less than I
section.
would have thought.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like, but I'm
It
curious
was
to
less
see the
than I
data.
thought.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. Now, if I recall correctly, there had been a fatality, correct, about 20, 30 years ago on this street. And again, it was this young boy struck by a car.
It wasn't at the intersection, it was on the street
It was on the street itself. But again, this is not just about the intersection. This is about creating a safe piece of neighborhood where cars are driving at proper speeds within that. And to that point, let me get to page 2, because this is the other piece in our toolkit here, which is intended to dissuade drivers from wishing to enter into this neighborhood here in order to avoid the light at Wyoming and South Orange Avenue. And this is a pair of traffic circles that we would propose. Originally, we were proposing them just for Mayhew and Overhill, but at our second meeting, at the January meeting when we met, it was felt that we should install one at Harding and Overhill as well. Part of the reason for that is that Harding and Mayhew are both exceptionally long streets which don't have four-way stops at Overhill. They essentially have two-way stops, so you don't have to stop on Harding, you don't have to stop on Mayhew, and so it just creates that much further piece of road to fly down. So as far as north-south movement, these interrupt that and cause a real necessity to actually really slow and actually make a maneuver. And for those who are coming up the hill, they have to go all the way around this thing. So it's essentially 270 degrees of movement through this. And that in itself may prove sufficient time waster, so to speak, that, well, that's as much of a pain in the ass to do this as it was to wait for the signal. I'll just wait for the signal next time. Why should I bother doing that? You know, all
So
that
is this a
driving around.
physical structure?
So this is a physical structure, and the structure is rather simple. You would have a circle approximately yay so wide, which may be not yay so tall. You might have planters.
Oh,
We're playing plans.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm saying that our guy,
they can't hear you at home.
They can't hear you at home. So
So it's
back
a
it up,
planter.
describing that would be a center circle approximately 5 to 6 feet in diameter, maybe anywhere from curb height to a foot or two above ground. Planted, decorative, attractive feature for the community.
Okay, I got it.
Then surrounding that,
Like the one in Montrose.
Except centered.
Yeah, that one's not, the one
except,
in
right,
Montrose is
except
nice.
centered, right.
Except
The one-
centered, yeah.
That's right.
That
The
would be
one in
nice to center
Montrose
them.
is
May I
not
recommend
particularly effective.
The problem also is you have to put the Chevron signs on those, right? Isn't that required by?
I would actually, I don't think it anymore is. I would actually, I've asked Sal if he could actually remove those chevrons now because you know,
Wait,
10
you
years
remove the
in,
chevrons? There's like 900
I would
of
like
them.
to remove the chevrons because at 10 years in, I think everybody knows there. And in fact,
Oh, no, they
with the
don't.
chevrons, the chevrons that are up are actually on approaches where most people don't actually approach from. Right. Okay, it's not on Montrose where you see the chevrons. It's on Woodlawn and the other two
It was hard to figure out why they put them there.
Right.
Yeah,
So
we should call
just
the guy with the
aesthetically, I would
pickup
like actually I think we can remove them now. But to continue this, so that would be the green circle you can see in the center there. Surrounding that is a cobblestone apron, circular, that may be as much as 10 or 12 feet wide, that provides a surface that trucks can drive on, fire trucks can drive on, and cars could drive on too if they wanted to, but it's essentially a surface that is unpleasant to drive on, so you're not going to do so. So that makes the circle, instead of being a 4 or 6 foot diameter thing, 10 or 12 feet wide, requiring the vehicle to make a rather sizable turn around the thing.
Okay.
So
Thank
it
you.
accommodates all the vehicles, fire truck, ambulance, moving truck, all those incidental vehicles you might expect in that neighborhood, but at the same time, for Joe Schmo who's trying to beat the clock, it's just enough of a deterrent that he's not going to want to do that.
you can't take your Ferrari over the curb, basically what
You
you're
can,
saying.
but you might want to take it to the shop afterward. You have to realign.
Is the purpose of that multi-level circles to allow emergency vehicles and trucks to get over that?
Precisely,
Okay.
precisely, right. You want,
And that's basically a design advancement instead of doing them off center, so
Right.
that you can get by, which makes the circles rather ineffective from that one particular direction. This is the new.
well, yes, ideally, this is not new. This has sort of been
Okay.
around, and we could have done that maybe in Montrose, but whatever the case, we didn't. Notwithstanding, this is a way to essentially achieve a rather large 10 or 12 foot circle, much like what you have on Sloane Street, with an attractive feature in the center that still meets your aesthetic desire for the community. So that we believe can dissuade cut-throughs, that we believe can cut down on the speeds on Mayhew and Harding when installed at both intersections. And we've talked with the community about further steps, if need be, The simplest of which is take two cars and park them on opposite sides of the street to each other. But a version of that, which is essentially permanent, would be to put mid-block neck downs just as a process of traffic calming, not necessarily for crossing the street at all, but merely as a visual deterrent to maintaining high speeds there. We'll see what the RSA team has to say about that.
The fire chief does not like speed humps as a rule. You know,
Understandable.
It slows response time.
Understandably,
like
that's quite
traffic
true.
circles?
He cannot
Does he
hit
like
those things as fast as he'd like
It
to.
goes right over.
So the action before the Board of Trustees is to authorize and fund the SAL to contract with a transportation engineering consultant to undertake a roadway safety audit of the area of Harding and Mayhew from their intersections with South Orange Avenue all the way north to the intersections with Toulouse, excluding Wyoming itself, excluding the intersections of Wyoming and South Orange Avenue, because that's quite complex in and of itself, and then that extra $4,000, and we're not studying that. We know that intersection works. It's just what comes next. So that's our essential proposal to you. Any questions of me?
I think we asked them all.
Yes. Good.
Thank you.
Good. Now, the second matter is on the other side of town.
Actually, you know what? Can we just get very, very thorough analysis, Dan, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
So just to get closer, so we keep the process moving, is there any objection? I do it as an RFP or competitive quotes or whatever the process to solicit an RSA?
This is like a $5,000, $6,000 job. It's not a lot of money.
What did the Garfield cost?
I can't hear you.
What did the Garfield
I
cost?
think they never
It
cost
was
like
around, it was less than
4,500.
10, as I recall.
I think people would call it 6. Is our
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
This is a little more complex.
okay.
Barry, you'll take that as an action item?
That was a yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next location is Scotland Road, and in particular its intersection with Raymond Avenue. And as you may be familiar, the residents of the West Montrose Neighborhood Association apparently reached out to Essex County and requested a signal at this location. This has been a matter that West Montrose Neighborhood has been engaged with the town apparently for quite some time. In speaking to the county apparently listened and hired Parsons Brinkerhoff to conduct a traffic signal warrant analysis. They were able to find a single warrant that justified the location of a signal at Raymond, and with that, are prepared to actually install and put one in. Our understanding was that they were looking for some token or measure of support for that action from either the community or from the neighborhood, and I may be mistaken in that, but we have looked at this area ourselves, and the concerns of speeding and inability to cross, particularly for crossing school children, appears to be actually in fact, and what is really occurring. We understand cars have left the road. We do know that the speeds are excessive. We do know that it's very difficult to get them to stop to be able to cross. We looked at it, and it was requested that Sal look at different options for addressing this problem. We actually did look at that in our committee. Among the things that are possible alternatives are, of course, four-way stop signs at that location, and that will not occur because of the nature of the level of traffic. It's 12,000 vehicles per day on that road. We looked at what's known as a hawk signal, which was the kind of signal that had been proposed for the present crossing in front of Exxon on South Orange Avenue itself, which is a lighted array that when a pedestrian approaches, pushes the button or whatever, essentially lights up and may even have embedded sensors in the road also lighting up, essentially a demonstration of lights, you may call it, suggesting that you should stop at this intersection. Unfortunately, because they're not red lights, and because it's not a true traffic signal, these tend not to necessarily be obeyed. And there is a real non-compliance with them because they're not perceived to be an obligatory stopping like a stoplight. We all stop for stoplights. We all went to traffic school. We all learned to stop for stoplights. But these new devices don't necessarily command the level of respect that's necessary. So because we're dealing with school children, because their numbers can be significant, because there is also a larger community, there's temples on the west side, for instance, the east side, for instance, of Scotland Road, presumably having a significant pedestrian population. We felt that this was not an area where we wanted to put in something that might work. We ought to actually select and support something that actually we do know will work. And we came to the conclusion that nothing short of an actual signal can provide that degree of reassurance that we need. So that when the signal goes red, you know that they'll stop, and you know that you can step onto the sidewalk and you're not going to get killed. So, in looking at and going through and evaluating and dispensing with alternatives, we essentially came to the conclusion that the signal was the only effective mechanism that we could use to actually create a stopping condition adequate for kids to cross there and be able to walk to school. One of our objectives, of course, is to increase walkability in the community, particularly kids walking to school and getting them out of their mom's car and reducing that level of traffic. It's a larger goal for us. But I also want to mention that Raymond is also a means for us to be able to develop the bicycle network as well, and provides a good back route via Bose to Raymond to Grove, back route into Seton Hall away from South Orange Avenue. So it's another alternative means to be able to get there. So for a number of reasons, we see this as having larger quantities of crossing traffic, useful crossing traffic. Again, kids from Montrose neighborhood going to either Baird or to the pool or to middle school. So there's a fair amount of moving traffic of kids in both directions each day. So we believe that a signal will actually provide the reassurance and the positive determination of a stop that was necessary for kids to be able to cross. We're still going to see a traffic guard there because it is what it is, but we still believe that this is what's necessary to be able to make it actually safe. So to that end, this is not a matter that's entirely within our hands in the sense of we're not paying for this or building or authorizing it, but we are looking to provide support to the county to actually go ahead and implement this thing and get on with implementing this thing. And in addition, we're also asking for your speed is, solar powered your speed is signs, because at present your speed is signs are both very small, they're also battery powered. The batteries only last a day or two. So it's not as effective as they would like to see it.
So your consensus is that the traffic signal is the best option?
Our consensus, the traffic signal is the best, and in fact, the only, what I'll call really, truly fail-safe option. I do not want to put something out there that someone starts to walk across, and some guy just says, oh, I didn't stop for that, I wasn't familiar with it.
I am aware that the county will definitely go ahead and put that in, and they are encouraging our town to maybe pass a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saying that we're in support of that. It's just always a good thing to do. So
yes,
if we can get that sort of resolution, if everybody's in agreement.
Well, I mean, we can put it on the agenda, but I would like to give the residents to come have a chance to speak,
exactly.
because I know that it's a.
there are folks.
I know it's not 100% in favor. We should have I know we have one resident here. We should have another meeting on it. Let the residents speak on it, and then we can vote on the resolution.
That's fine.
Yeah, I know we had a meeting on it, but I also know from past experience that if we don't actually notice this and do it and give the public absolutely every chance to talk, we wind up having a mass coming afterwards. So it's better to have them come first and then pass the resolution, or if not pass it, depending on what the majority wants to do.
So Mark, what are you proposing specifically? I mean, clearly it includes a large number of people. So who do you notice, and how and when? What do you think? What are you suggesting? I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to understand what you're suggesting.
I'm not really sure how wide a net you cast on that, but I guess
we post it like we normally do, in our agenda. on the website and notice it as we notice,
I mean, I would notice obviously everyone, within a certain few blocks, diameter, and I assume word will get out very quickly to the other neighbors.
Or to the neighborhood association.
Do we want, so to that point, do we simply want to put a discussion item, traffic light, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, traffic light at Raymond and Scotland on our agenda for the next meeting, and to Howard's point, have the representatives of the neighborhood association put it out on their lists and notify the neighbors?
No,
Yeah,
but
the
do
question
a
is, do you want to do it at
resolution.
the trustee meeting, or do you want to do it at the public safety meeting? That's the only thing.
No.
No, we should do it here.
All seriousness, I am proposing that we do a resolution. We've been talking about this in exhaustion with multiple meetings, and so we need to take action one way or the other.
That's fine.
We put it as a resolution, notice so people can come for discussion, and then after discussion and listening to all the feedback upon all the other discussions we've had going on for almost a year, then we voted either up or down.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
Steve, would we have to have it as an ordinance as well?
No.
No.
Is the county,
No, all the county's looking for is that you're going to
Supporting.
say, we support you, and you can,
That's it.
that's all.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, my name's Ed Moore. I'm with the Westmont Metropolitan Rose Neighborhood Association. As Trustee Ford said, we already had a community meeting. People came out, expressed their concerns. The president charged Sal to go look at some alternatives. Sal worked with Dan and the Transportation Committee and came up with some, only said alternative, he came up with a solution. This is the only solution. So right now, you guys have to say, okay, go ahead with it. Another meeting, get people out, some want it, some don't want it, you know what?
But we still have to notice it anyway, to the neighborhood. We still have to notice it anyway. We put it on the agenda for the next, I don't know if it's going to be the next meeting or the one after, whichever one the village president decides. We still have to notice it anyway. And people are going to come and speak. There's no question that people will come out and talk on this topic.
Now, do you have to do a resolution?
Yeah, we still have to
Oh,
vote.
yeah, you still have to do a
Okay, you
resolution.
can't just send a letter saying, hey, this looks good.
No, we're going to have the resolution on the agenda the same night.
Yeah, and you can vote on it the same night. I understand what exactly, and that's what I'm saying, to finally have some action taken. Let's put it on a resolution, but part of that process is always good to have the discussion. Then, after discussion that same night that is on the agenda, after discussion, the president will call for a vote, and then we vote on it.
And the resolution is just simply expressing, the resolution is expressing support for this installation, whether it passes or not, we'll see what happens.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes. And it's my understanding that the county is committed to going ahead and installing it. So
but the
this
other,
will be-
the other thing that I'm suggesting is that we notify the neighborhood associations
That's fine.
of the resolution.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. Sounds like action. Wonderful. So I've mentioned the other two items, which essentially is the road repaving process and looking to incorporate that within our Complete Streets overall process. And what was the other thing? Oh, you had mentioned Finley as well.
Finley.
You want to talk about Finley for a second? Okay. The gentleman from Finley Place did appear before our committee as well. What we identified was that there is speeding. That basically is a stolen car raceway. So when you steal your car, that's the road you take to get out of town. The road runs essentially right into Valesburg and Newark. And
Where was Finley?
Finley is
on the
the street
northeast
right
corner.
behind the VA hospital.
VA has you.
Okay, and it comes off the center and runs east towards
Okay.
Newark. Okay, it's two-way in South Orange, but when you get into Valesburg, Newark, it becomes one-way eastbound.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things that we had come up with was the notion of turning the street from Hamilton, I believe, to Center Street one way in the westbound direction. So essentially you can't get into that street unless you come around from Hamilton in the middle, I believe it's Hamilton, and then come out at the ends. That would cut down the amount of cut-through traffic going from Center into Newark, into Valesburg, using Finley. They would then be obliged to go all the way up to South Orange Avenue and come in. And that would certainly cut down on the racing, the speeds and all that, of course, unless they're just simply going to drive illegally on a one-way street. And that also may reduce some of the crime issues that are occurring in that neighborhood as well, just because it's that much more difficult to get in and out.
Of course, probably the hardest thing with this is the education factor. People who are used to going that way every day.
Right, so we would sign that, for instance, no left turn into Findlay or no right turn into Findlay. Obviously, you know, one-way signs do not enter these kinds of things.
Right. We have to do the same kind of study for that? Or is it-
No, well, at this present stage, well, actually, we may find ourselves actually doing an RSA, but at this present stage, we've asked the resident who appeared before us to have a conversation with the 6 neighbors who would be affected by the one-way reversal, who will no longer be able to simply drive right into their driveway, but will have to now make a loop. Again, a case of making life in general for neighbors a little more difficult in terms of access and the like.
Dan, one of the
Or to
concerns
permit others to
when we
use it.
discussed this issue of public safety was that is a flow of traffic for employees at the VA hospital. So I imagine
Is that?
that was the chief's impression. So as employees come out of there and make their way to their homes in Newark or whatever, I wonder, are they going to be a major stakeholder? While they may not be residents, if we're changing, are they going to come and start making noise? You know, making a big issue about that?
It wouldn't be really. I think it's Tremont, isn't it? That's on the other side of the hospital. That which is much more of a corridor and an avenue, because Findlay really only runs for like a block or two, and then it turns into Vale.
Yeah, Tremont is designed for this kind of traffic.
And Tremont is designed for that. Yeah, it's a collector street, so it's much, you know, it's signalized and has the capacity for that. So
Interesting idea.
okay, so we're still seized with that. Any other questions for us?
Have we gotten you to every street in South Orange yet?
We got to every street in South
Have
Orange?
you gotten to every street in South
We're
Orange?
working on that. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but we're getting close.
Well, glad that your committee exists. It sounds like that you're really being productive with some real things that make a real difference.
We're
And thank
enjoying
you.
ourselves. It's quite a process, I have to say. It's fun. That room's like a crucible, you know. You get 7 or 8 people in there, and things get very exciting quick.
And Dan, one last thing. I know in your email you also raised concerns about the perception of enforcement, and as I emailed you, but just for everyone else's benefit, we are going to talk about that at Public Safety, and I hope you'll join us.
I'm looking forward to that. I've
on-
already had
on-
a conversation with Chief Jim, and
Oh, good. On the 29th of January.
fantastic. 29th of January. Okay, right. Because you were on MLK Day. You've moved that, I assume. Oh,
No.
no. 29th is a Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Fantastic. Very good. I'll be there.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael?
Thank you. Very good.
From Finley Place, so we're gonna have a meeting with the residents?
I think what I heard Dan say when he sent his emails, the resident himself is going to take it upon himself to survey his neighbors, just to gauge interest, and then
He'll be coming back to us.
right.
Okay.
The ball's in their court at the moment.
Okay, let's try and get to the rest of these discussion items quickly. Trustee Bauer asked that we discuss Open Space Trust Fund, the proposed draft policy on capital maintenance. I'm not.
Well, why don't we put it on?
I would put it on hold till she
Yeah,
comes.
I would
Sounds good. Open Space Advisory Committee structure.
Yeah, we raised this at a meeting last month, I guess, about modifying the structure of the Open Space Committee to have a trustee liaison to the committee and a staff person as a liaison to the committee. Council had his associate prepare a memo. I don't think there's any legal reason precluding it, and in fact, Council said that when we do have an advisory committee, by our code, we must have a trustee liaison. So I would just like to request that we solidify that at our next meeting, have a resolution to modify the makeup of the committee, to have a trustee liaison. Trustee Rosner at a previous meeting said that they used to go through planning and zoning. If he wants to do it, he's welcome to do so.
I need one more meeting.
What's that?
I need one more meeting.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Perfect. Unless
yours.
anyone else wants to volunteer.
No, Mark's got it.
So congratulations. And as far as staff liaison, if I could perhaps we could word it as village administrator or his designee, and then if you could designee
All right, good.
somebody or work with somebody in staff, whether it be the tax assessor who obviously has knowledge of properties, whether it be your future deputy or your designee. You comfortable with that? Thank you. That was easy.
Well done.
Okay, status of the old stone house, Trustee Levison.
Calm down.
Yeah, now that Laura is no longer here, she had the responsibility for that project plan. Maybe Steve wants to address it.
I sent out an email this afternoon pointing out something that I've had a discussion with a number of you over years now about the access. And I have never felt that I've been given a clear indication how the access should be constructed. And I pulled out just two of the more recent emails. These are two separate ones. There's a copy for each of you. Okay. Which point out the two different points of access, one being off Grove, which is a 10-foot wide driveway which creates a flag lot. The alternative which I came up with, which was turning the police driveway into a dedicated street. And that would actually create a conforming lot because it would now butt on a street. Sal takes exception to that proposal for a number of reasons, and it's in one of those emails that I gave you, his objections to creating a dedicated street. The problem with the 10-foot drive is that it abuts the retention pond on the senior citizens project, and you'd literally have to create a retaining wall inside the retention pond to support the driveway. You're probably going to impair the volume of the retention pond, and it's engineering, and you're going to have to buy that strip from the senior citizens folks. You don't have to buy the driveway, obviously. There was some discussion at one point that we should go ahead and advertise it pursuant to the driveway, not create it yet, and simply see if there are takers. That I never felt that instruction was given to me by the board as a whole. If it is, I will go ahead and do that, but I think you all should look very, very carefully at Sal's objections, because if indeed you get a buyer, you're going to be faced with those problems that Sal points out.
Well, one thing I'd like to say, 6 years of sitting on this board, this is one of the first things that was presented to me as a trustee with some of the other cities, and I understand it was ongoing before then. I can't believe that we're still dealing with this issue.
And what was your comment?
Yeah.
I have a thought on this. I don't know if we're under any particular time crunch to figure this out, other than that it's been going on for so long, let's get it over with.
Well, I think it is, the reason it's time sensitive, because to Deborah's point, it was 5 or 6 years ago, we put on a 5-year roof, that the clock is rapidly ticking, that we're going to need to, at some point there's going to be additional money that will need to be invested or something, because the temporary fix has long since elapsed.
It's like a black hole.
I think one of the points that we made when we did the fix the previous time, and that was taking money out of the open space trust fund, is that we weren't going to spend any more money in keeping it.
I actually think that I sort of agree with Sal about using the thing along the senior housing as the access road, and I would tend to advertise it that way. I found a lot of other problems with the police department besides making it a street, and that it's too often that road is blocked by police cars and other cars, and it's impossible to get through, and whatever other issues come from that, especially if we do renovations there.
Well,
so I'm not really sure how to get around that.
Now, if that is the case, if you want to go the 10-foot wide driveway, and you have to remember you're creating now a flag lot, which is a legal issue. You're going before the planning board to get that approved. That's number one. Number two, while the owner of the Senior Citizens Project has, at least in concept, agreed to sell us a strip, the details have never been negotiated.
I don't disagree with any of that. I'm really just interested. I think at this point in time, I'd really like to know if anybody would even buy this piece of property. And I think we're as Howie likes to say, we're kicking the can down the road. And this is over a minor detail, or maybe it's a major detail, but the point is, I don't really believe that we're going to have anybody to buy the property. And I really want to find out if there is any interest, and then we can figure this out.
Well, here's the only point I would make. We're buying a bit of a pig in a poke, because if we're going to advertise it, we should know just a little bit more about the cost and feasibility of the access we're telling our buyer he or she is going to have.
And are we, in the way that you imagine that, are we on the hook for the costs?
Excuse me?
In the way that you imagine that being advertised, are we on the hook for the costs, or would they be?
Well, that's
Are we saying if
I
you
need
purchase
some
this, we
guidance.
will build you the access, or saying if you purchase this, you'll be allowed to build the access?
That's up, you've got
Okay.
to give me, you got to tell me what
All
you
right.
would want to do. I mean, I can structure
You
it
could have
in
two
a
different price points. To get
number
to a
of
certain
ways.
price, we'll pay
This,
for it.
the whole conversation could be moot as well. One of the things that we've talked about in some generalities, which we need to talk about, and which we will soon be talking about in much more specific terms, is renovating, is our capital improvements to our buildings, one being the police department, which is in serious need of renovation, to put it lightly. And one of the ideas that has been tossed around is if the police department needs to remain in that spot. And if not, this entire conversation is moot, and anything we do is not necessarily relevant and possibly counterproductive, because I think the theory behind that is if we find a new space for the police department, that space would be potentially sold to a private developer. And if that's the case, and there is going to be an apartment building similar to what else there is there currently, then it could be very easy to put in access to that space at no cost to almost anybody. So the whole conversation is...
The flip side to that is the new developer may say, there's no way to do access because we want to use garage parking underneath, and we're not going to actually have a road that goes through to the back. By the way, who says there has to be an access road? Why can't they park their car on the street on Grove? And why does it have to be a road other than a sidewalk going up to the house?
Because now so it's just a street parking with a sidewalk going in? Oh, man, now you've really got a non-conforming piece. Now
Maybe we can buy one parking space.
Wow.
Maybe we can buy a parking space from the senior home and have them park on the senior lot,
Well,
and not have an access road to go to the house.
you're making this subdivision even more difficult from a legal perspective. Now it's not just a flag lot. Now it's totally landlocked.
It is landlocked.
Yeah, right now it is, and
But
you're selling a landlocked piece. Yes.
Almost, no matter what we do, everything could change if we sold that property that the police department is on. We might have to do, we might do something now, we might have to do it again, theoretically.
That is an enormous if.
I don't know if it's that enormous.
Pretty far down.
I don't think it's that far down the road, because one of the things that we were just talking about before we came out here was looking at potential spaces that we could move to, and if that's something that we're actually seriously considering, then these two plans should be working together.
But what about putting it up there as a landlocked lot, just to see if there's any interest in the property, and then...
You can't do that.
No one's going to take it. So you can prove your point, but...
Yeah, sure.
Just leaving it as access from the police.
No, and
They still have access to get to the house, they just have no place to park. That's the issue.
I don't think the MLUL permits you to sell a land.
You know what?
I'm just confused about the process. I mean, I'm looking through some of my notes, and we talked about this last on July 23rd, and in my notes...
Of which year?
Of 2012.
Yeah, 1990.
At least the most recent one on 2012. And my note says that the action item was that an RFP was going to be put out for conditional sale for the property. And that's the last I heard. So Howard, when you put this on the agenda, I thought it was a fair question, because I was kind of wondering the same thing. Whatever happened to that?
It was my impression it was a conditional sale with the use of the police driveway.
And we weren't going to do a
as-
subdivision until we saw if there was interest, as you guys were just
Right.
saying. Right?
That's where we were.
That's where I thought we were, and then we never heard any further.
Well, let me ask you a question. Well, I mean, so what happens? So if there is interest, then we have to go and look at working out all those details. And if there's not interest, then what do we do?
Well, it depends upon what that interest is.
Okay, but
There's
what
a
about the
value
second
to
one?
it.
What if nobody responds? Then what?
Well,
We
that's
actually could make it
demolition.
the village president's residence.
It'd be nicer than my place.
You know what? This is
The
Groundhog
village president
Day.
mansion.
This is definitely Groundhog Day.
Deja vu all over again.
I mean, I've only been here a year and a half, and I'm tired of talking about
At
this.
some point, we have to find out if there's an interest in that property, and that's why we wanted to do it, and that's why, so
And that's what we said.
Yeah, but what are we how are we going to tell them they're going to move? How are they going to get get construction materials to the site, that the building has to be renovated. You gotta show them some way you can drive a truck
Obviously airlifting
onto
it
the
in.
site to build, to bring materials. How are we, what are we gonna tell them?
What's the cost to putting out that RFP?
It's not the question of the cost in doing it. I can put out an
He
RFP
needs to know
tomorrow.
what-
How are we gonna tell them they get to their property?
In your,
Details, that's,
You have to drive to the police station.
But then you have to tell
You know, the evening's getting late, we're all getting a little batty, you know.
But we said drive to the police station, that's what we said on the.
I would love to table this for another meeting.
But then are we
Yes.
locked in?
No.
God forbid somebody does come in that.
No, let's make.
I'll
it-
table this for the January 14th, 2014 meeting.
Oh, God.
Don't you want to do the whole thing?
All right, what are we gonna do? It's time, it's getting late.
Somebody put all the options in a hat and we'll just,
Um,
personally, I think
I can
that,
go, I have no problem going to the owners of the senior project and negotiating some details that allow for a 10-foot strip. I'll do
Sounds
that.
good to me. Why
But how
don't we
much-
do
how much
that?
I'll do
time-
that
how
if
much
that's-
of
if
your
that's
time
what
are you
would
gonna
like
spend
to
on
do.
that?
And we'll,
Can we go out and say you will be provided access through one of these things at our option?
right.
Right.
Can we be vague at
He
this
needs you to
point?
get to the mic.
Can we be that
Say
vague?
That we would provide access via one of these two
Okay.
routes and reserve the discretion to choose it if and when we actually
okay,
get it.
and does that mean the village is paying for the cost of the other option to make the improvement?
No.
No.
Here's a question. Do you think that if someone were interested in that property, and I'm having some real trouble thinking of what that motivation would be, but if someone were interested in that, and we put out an RFP that was a little vague and said, well, it's going to be one of these two things, and we'll work out the details if you're interested, basically, would someone not respond or do anything from that?
Well-
Or would they reach out and say, hey, we're interested, but we don't really know what the details are, and we need to work that out before we can put any cost or anything on it? What I'm saying is by leaving it vague, do you think there people who would otherwise be interested would not respond?
What we can do is ask them to make optional proposals.
I like that idea of asking them to figure it out.
And let the bid be a function of that.
Can
We're
we-
not gonna pay
okay.
for the 10-foot, but I still have to find out some of the details on the 10-foot. I mean, I've gotta negotiate some terms, you gotta tell them
Can
something.
we not
we
have?
don't know.
Hey, can we not have a side conversation, please?
We're looking at the property.
I know.
Let me make this suggestion. Let me make this suggestion so that I can perhaps move it in this fashion. I will go to the owners of the Senior Citizens Project and get a number for the 10-foot easement, what that would cost to buy.
Okay.
We will then offer it to someone with the option, at our option, to either do it through the police drive or the 10-foot access. We get to pick. They get to bid on the purchase depending which option we select.
Let's do that. That sounds
All
great.
right?
Okay, done. Anybody opposed to that?
And an RFP will be put out?
Timeframe.
Or is that, or is
On
there
that
an
basis, on that basis, with those options,
A
with those
timeframe.
options.
6 weeks. Is that fair? 6 weeks?
I've got to get a number from,
To being able to put out the RFP?
yeah. Certainly within a matter of 3 weeks after I get that number, we can have it
Okay.
out.
I think we should do this a Chinese auction type thing. There's plenty of paper.
All right, so you're going to go ahead and do that?
Yes.
That sounds great. Status, sale of village property, trustee Levison.
Yeah, just, that was the bidding, Steve? The sale of the lot that's
Yes?
in back of Giorgio and...
Oh, the strip of
It's,
property.
we're waiting for another survey proposal. We got the survey out now. We've got the appraisal back, which is rather high, and as soon as we get the survey, we'll put it up for sale. We can probably do it by the next meeting, I would think.
Who's ordering the survey? Who's ordering the survey?
I am. I'm doing three proposals.
Thank you. Village Administrator Monthly Status Reports, Trustee Goldberg.
Yeah, I put this on back in September as a request to receive timely and frequent status reports from the administrator. And shortly after I did that in September, we got a bunch of status reports. And I did it again this time, and we suddenly got a bunch of status reports. So I'm tempted to put this on the meeting agenda every meeting because it seems to work. Kidding aside, though, what can we do to come to an agreement about a timely, regular schedule for status reports?
Deputy
Deputy Administrator.
Get a deputy administrator.
Pardon me? Well, that would certainly help immensely.
Just
It's
very-
really, it's a product, it's a, you know, it's just a product of time, but I will, again, I'll, and I'm trying to envision, would this be better if it's monthly, to precede the conference agenda meeting likely, because that would tend to potentially play into the discussion versus?
I mean, I thought getting them the weekend before the meeting I thought was helpful. That way we answered a lot of the questions that we may have had coming into this meeting. So timing it in advance of the meeting is helpful.
I think monthly is fine.
I think if we get it the Friday before the meeting,
conference
ideally a lot of what's in there we could take off the agenda for both closed session and for here.
One of the things, and actually Mr. Rother and I discussed this, is that particularly going to this format, if we're going to try and confine our executive sessions, it's going to be a necessity for he and I to do that in order to condense these things and get through that schedule. And obviously we have a vested interest.
Alex, it's not really, if we're gonna look to take things off the agenda, we really should have it by Tuesday or Wednesday before the meeting, so we can look at it and then get back to you before Friday or something.
I think it should be like Tuesday before the conference agenda.
We could shoot for, once we get all the agenda items in.
We could have it by the first Monday of every month. Fair enough to say.
Just some regular,
I would do it by the first
periodic
Monday of every month.
that we can count on.
Okay. The first Monday of every month?
Okay, I'll focus on the first Monday of the month for sort of a general status report, and then as agendas come out, if there's specific items on the executive.
Will they become public documents so that they would be posted? Because now we'll not have a discussion. I mean, what you're doing is that we normally have it as a discussion item. Now
Yeah, and I would parse them into, obviously, executive session ones would not be a
confidential
public document, but
Okay, everyone good? Sounds good? Proposed Cablevision license agreement and ordinance, Trustee Levison or Mr. Rother?
Yep, we prepared an ordinance and a license agreement, which we circulated to everyone. It involves bringing a cable line across First Street. Everything's going to be buried under First Street and wrapping around the parking lot. We've provided this in license form so that we can make them pull it out if we ever need to. This will be installed under the supervision of the village engineer. He's going to have the route marked out and approve it, and he will approve the resurfacing of the street and the parking lot when the project's done.
And who's paying for this? Cablevision's paying for this?
Yep.
Yeah, it's to give them, currently there's buildings there.
It's UPS. It's the UPS store can't get cable.
The whole building can't get it.
Yeah, and I should point out, this is a very neat way to do it because it's consistent with our position that we have taken all along with NextG, that we don't want poles. It's all underground.
Now that, we just had I assume this is lot 9 that gets torn up, right? It goes through lot 9?
Well, it actually goes, it does cross one part, but they do chase along the skirt from the
It's
building.
the shirt button.
The lot behind it, which is lot 9.
There's a map attached.
It's attached to the ordinance.
The only reason I ask is, I mean, we redid that lot not terribly long ago, and it's in reasonably good shape, and inevitably when you tear up a lot, and even though you pave
It's not being torn up. It's going along the curb side, on the grass side.
Okay.
Only place that, and really why we put the lease in place, he has to cut across the driveway that ramps up.
Is there, oh, I see, okay, I see. And while this is being done, is there any other need for any other trenching or sewer repair or anything else while we're already there and tearing up the parking lot?
No idea.
Might be worth asking. Sal's aware of this, right?
We worked this with Sal.
Or the parking authority running a line for
Mark's been
a,
there, Tommy was there.
they all, And nobody else, okay, so they're all, parking authority's aware of it and the engineer's aware of it.
And DPW's aware.
And DPW's aware of it.
And a quid pro quo.
Huh?
A quid pro quo. We get a cable.
What's that?
We get a cable to Silpac.
Oh, this is for the,
No, it's,
okay.
Okay.
So that ordinance will be on next meeting, is that what you're saying?
Okay, and we already did the transportation committee update. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Moved by trustee Gould, seconded by trustee Rosner. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Adjourned.